You're listening to the Devil Dog Talk Show.
This show contains explicit material and is recommended for ages 18 and older for mature audiences only. But hey, it's the internet.
All right, everybody. Of course, I flubbed that up. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Devil Dog Talk Show. This is going to stay in just like this. We got Luis Fonseca, and we've already had such a great conversation just fixing some things and little technicalities. But I'm going to turn it over to Luis to introduce himself a bit more. And welcome to the Devil Dog Talk Show.
Hey, thank you, brother, so much for having me on, man. I really do appreciate this. So yeah, you were saying, brother, I'm Luis Fonseca. I was a U.S. Navy hospital corpsman for 22 years of my adult life. I came in right out of high school, but I'm a high school dropout. So at 18, when I realized that all the bad shit I was getting into was going to lead me nowhere, I knew I had to find some sort of stability in my life. And growing up in Fayetteville, North Carolina, everyone goes into the Army. My dad was in the Army, but I didn't want to, quote unquote, follow directly in his footsteps. And so I went to the recruiting station and ended up joining the Navy. Had no idea what the hell a hospital corpsman was whatsoever. I knew what an Army medic was, And so I actually went into the Marine Corps recruiter's office to join the Marine Corps, thinking that, growing up as an Army brat, you hear all those inner service jokes, right? Mm-hmm. And you always hear about the Marines are the dumbest, they're, whatever you want, jarheads, right? And all this.
Exactly.
And so, yeah. And so I figured who would take a high school dropout. So I went to the Marine Corps recruiter's office and quickly found out that they didn't have a medical program. And the Marine Corps recruiter still didn't tell me who took care of them when they got hurt on the battlefield or out in the field. Because I asked them, I was like, well, who takes care of you guys? When you're sick or you get hurt. And all he kept saying was, some other guys. And he wouldn't tell me who it was. And so he gave me a bunch of pamphlets. And on the way walking out of the recruiting center, because the recruiter's office was in a recruiting center, so we had all the branches there, minus the Coast Guard. Walking out, the Navy recruiters were sitting outside smoking, and I used to smoke back then. And I remember, I don't know if I asked them for a cigarette or a light, one of the two. And that's when one of them asked me, what did that Marine offer you? And I told him, well, gave me a bunch of pamphlets to look over. But I really want to be in the medical profession, and they didn't have it in the Marine Corps. And so I think that's when he saw that the hook was already in my mouth. He just needed to start reeling it in. Yeah. And so I'm sure at that moment is when he told me, do you want to be a hospital corpsman with the Marines? Because I remember telling him, I don't know what that is. Can you talk to me about it? And this was back in 1999, so computers were fairly newish, right? Mm-hmm. The internet was very new. And so, but I do remember him putting up on the screen what a hospital corpsman was, and him asking me if I can guarantee you to go into this rate, or you probably said rate. I might have heard it as a profession. If I can guarantee you to go into this profession, would you sign up today? And I told him absolutely. He already knew I was a high school dropout, so he put up my ASVAB scores and said, well, with these scores, you can do anything you want in the Navy, which they actually tried to push me to be a nuke. And sometimes I think about it like, man, if I would have thought about that $90,000 sounds great. But at the end of the day, I don't think I could have been anything else besides a hospital corpsman. You know what I mean, brother? So
absolutely. That's a beautiful, beautiful background to finding your love. You know what I mean? Like, right. It's so weird how many mirrors to like my personal experience you're like throwing in front of me. I'm like, yeah, I went into a Marine Corps recruiting.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, with my dad too. And the guy starts talking, and it was like, the guy was like rapping away, and he goes, yeah, you could do, I grew up wrestling, right? So I just wanted to continue in the physical aspects of that. And then also, of course, the destructive aspects of being a young man and all those things. And he goes, yeah, this, that, and I could do the MCMAP training and whatever, and, be an instructor. I'm like, oh, cool, like a big old stupid kid. And then my dad goes, yeah, but do you have anything within the medical field? And then he goes, nah, but, honestly, and no bullshit, bro. Flavio Flores, the Navy recruiter, you ever hear about FMF Navy Corpsman? You know, just pops up, and I'm like, okay, let's go talk to that guy. And that was my, you know, for instance. And here you are, you know, I didn't have such a luxury on my ASVAB. I had a decent ASVAB, not nuke, okay? But I'm a retard, okay? So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's so funny to meet and have these conversations with people that have those backgrounds where it's so different. You know, a lot of people in the communities, you know, especially in the professions, right? The medical professions, they come from families of, you know, higher learning or I hate the word privilege, but a little bit more well off. Okay. And the system is usually, it's set up that way where if you don't know how to get into these areas of life, you don't. You know, a lot of my family growing up, they just, you know, they did what they did, you know, growing up the way we did. And well, that was something I always thank my father for, like stepping in and be like, hey, what about that? So to hear that you had a very similar route, dude, that's so fucking crazy. Because I'm like, dude, so this is 1999, right? And you're young, you high school, you said 18, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So when did you actually ship out, and what was that like?
So I shipped out July 12th is when I landed in Great Lakes, Illinois for boot camp, July 12th of 1999. The reason being is, so I turned 18 in November of 1998. And so my mother at that time was a very devout Jehovah's Witness. My dad, I think, had just gotten like baptized as a Jehovah's Witness. It was one of the reasons why my dad decided to retire at his 22-year mark, was because he had found being a Jehovah's Witness, and their religion is very much like, they don't support the government. They're not like they're not gonna go and do like anti-government shit, right? You know what I'm saying, or protest, but they very much like you know, Jehovah's Witnesses don't work in the government. They don't work for the government. They don't work in the military. They're not GS employees, you know, and that's like just a big whole Bible stuff background that we don't need to get into. But so anywho, so I knew my parents would not sign for me to go into the Navy, so I had to wait till I was 18. And so when I went in, probably like the first week of December to talk to the recruiters, I found out that to go into the medical profession, since it was overmanned at that time, if I wanted to be a corpsman, I had to wait. So yeah, it took me 7 months from the time I enlisted and the delayed entry program to actually head off to boot camp. And in those 7 months, my recruiter tried so hard to like finish high school, go get your GED. I can give you, I think at that time it was like a $50,000 college bonus if I had at least my GED. Yeah. And the knucklehead part of me was like, dude, why the fuck do I need a high school diploma? I already got a job lined up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna go in the military. I don't, you know, I never considered myself a smart man, even throughout school, just because no one ever. I always heard, you know, Luis is very bright, very intelligent. He just has a lot of energy, and if we can figure out how to help him sit down and focus that energy, the world is his oyster per se, right? But I can't, and no, you know, I don't say this to throw any jabs at any of my teachers throughout my life, but I can honestly say no one ever sat me down to teach me how to focus that energy. Got you. So a lot of, you know, the C's and D's that were coming into my household were always explained to me that I'm just lazy, you know, that I don't apply myself, you know, very, very Hispanic type of and maybe just in the 90s, 80s and 90s, all of us kids were raised that way, right? You know, if you're not applying yourself because ADHD wasn't around, anxiety wasn't, you know, like in the Hispanic household, it was always, no, it's just because you're undisciplined. You're not motivated. And the way we disciplined our kids back then was you either beat them or you just degraded them, right? Thinking that they would change. And now that I did 22 years in the Navy, I understood where a lot of that came from my father. You know, I get it. You know, he immigrated to the United States at 16 without knowing any English, joined the Army at 18 in the electronics community, working on radar systems, and taught himself English. So I get it. You know, for him, he's like, how you don't have a heart, mijo, like you have all this provided for you, why are you making life difficult? So I understand it now. I would be lying to you if I told you that my first two oldest boys, which are 27 and 23, didn't get some of that when they were young, because that's the only way I was taught how to be a father, right?
Yeah.
Totally different who I am now with my kids now, you know what I'm saying? But anywho, so I got it. But yeah, he tried to convince me to get my GED or finish high school. I was like, no, like I already got a career. And so yeah, so it took me a little while to actually get to boot camp and but I knew if I was going to join the military, it was going to basically be on my terms. I mean, especially after I found out that my ass now 22 years after being in the Navy, I realized that a Hispanic being recruited out of North Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all talk about this whole DEI shit going out the window now with the new administration. But yeah, back then they had quotas, right? I was I forgot what they call it in the recruiting world, but I was like a high educated, low minority group or something like that. So now I know why they pushed me so hard, especially to go like the nuke world and all that stuff. But yeah, so yeah, that's how I ended up.
Starting in 1999. That's so beautiful. So then in July, you actually get to boot. And of course, you're at Great Lakes, and A school was still at, I believe, Great Lakes at the time.
Yeah.
How was A school for you? Of course, looking at that centered focus, that conversation where you're like, hey, I have these influences in my life, right? You have your parents, your heritage, your culture, right? And same here. I don't look it, but Mexican, okay? And I'm the 2.0 version. We blend in.
There you go.
Come find me. Come find me, Wedo. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
Don't find me. Don't find me. No, but it's something that I find important to bring up, because it's something that you hit on really hard. Of course, the father figures, the generational kind of cycles, people want to stop, and then even the relevance to your children, different phases of life with different assets and different resources, different perspectives. So let's center focus a little bit on core school, right? How did you then in core school get through that? Like, was school challenging, or was it something that you were eager to do? Was it something that was more difficult, maybe because of the lack of focus, or did you find yourself really recentered or something?
So yeah, I really, when I went to boot camp, and I had a great opportunity, right? To kind of get my life together, get it, mijo, you're gonna have to keep it down, okay, buddy? I love you. Thank you. So I knew I had a great opportunity to actually do something with my life, and I didn't plan on doing the 22 years. It was really the 5 years, get out of Fayetteville, North Carolina, get a good solid foundation under me, and yeah. So core school, the first, because we do phases, right, or tests. All the way up until like test 4 or 5, I found it pretty easy, but that also cost me as well, because as I realized, like, I really don't need to put that much effort or focus into it. I started slacking off, just like I did in high school. And then test 7, I remember test 7, like if I just finished it last week, test 7 comes around, which is one of the hardest tests. And I end up failing it.
Oh, fuck.
Not only did I fail test 7, I also failed the practical for it.
Oh.
And yeah, and that really kind of woke me up and shook me, because you had to go stand, you had to go and do a oh, I'm sorry.
He reminds me of my son so much.
Yeah.
Hey, bud, you're okay. There's nothing important going on. We're all right. You go ahead, get some some hugs. Yeah. I'm acting like you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
So take your time, man.
So like I said, so I had to go stand in front of the my HM1 and my senior chief, and explain like why I failed this test in this well, I failed this test in this practical, and I remember that just scared me because I saw what little future I had kind of slipping away.
Oh,
and so then after that, it was, that's it, no more screwing around. And so the rest of course school, because I was focusing on, and I didn't graduate top of my class. I think we ended up graduating in my class something like 35, and I graduated somewhere around 25 or 20, so
it was nothing like it was detrimental to the entirety of you graduating at that point.
Right. But our instructor, I'm sure just like any instructors, let us know, like, hey, this isn't the time to screw around, man. Like you're in a big boy world now, right? And if this is what you want to do, you either put in the effort or we can disenroll you and you can go right down to the undesignated schoolhouse, and get a 2-week. And get a 2-week crash course on how to paint chip on a boat, and then send your ass out to the fleet. And so I knew that's what I knew I wanted to be in the healthcare profession. That's what I wanted to do. And so I got my crap together and graduated Hospital Corpsman A school in January of 2000. And then in February of 2000, I was in Camp Lejeune, actually Camp Johnson, North Carolina, for
Nice.
field medical, what we call field medical service school back then. Now it's field medical training battalion. So
that's something I'm learning too, is all the shit changes throughout the years for no reason other than somebody trying to get a star on an anchor or somewhere
something
else.
Right? Yeah.
It's so interesting because like I was at Camp Lejeune as well after course school. And I was actually there for a little bit longer because of the rotational school sessions or whatever, and ended up working in an emergency room there at the Camp Lejeune Naval Medical Center, or whatever it's called, the ER there. Really great place. And then same thing, FMSS at the Camp Johnson. Really great place. Everybody likes to say, "Oh, you didn't really work hard in North Carolina, Camp Johnson. We were over here at Camp Pendleton marching up hills." And I'm like, "Yeah, so what? Like, did you have to watch out for crocodile? Like every once in a while, maybe a cottonmouth? Like, no,
right?
We did get rattlesnakes even at in Margarita, Camp Margarita up in Pendleton and shit. But that was just once in a while. But I'm like, no, like this was like you're in their environment in North Carolina. It's not." To me, it's just different. It's a different kind of suck. And that's the reason why I just, I love the conversation of what corpsmen go through, especially throughout that period of time, because you're learning the skills, to provide exactly what the guy didn't know or didn't want to tell you, how to take care of those Marines,
Right.
So here you are in 2000, you graduated Corps school, you're going through FMSS, now FMTB. And we're roughly probably around 2000 and a half, right? 2000, maybe June, July. Where did you go after court school? I mean, FMSS.
Yeah. So, you're absolutely right. I graduated FMSS, I think April or May of 2000, and went straight over to 2nd Amphibious Assault Battalion, where I spent the first 4 years of my career there.
Oh, wow. So you got to stay right there in North Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah. So the funny thing is how in A school, they give you like your 3 choices of what if you could, your dream sheet, right? Where you would like to go. My instructors knew that I just wanted to be with the Marines. And so on my sheet, I just, in those 3 blocks, all I put was FMF. Now I wish I would have put overseas or West Coast first, because I got stationed what I was trying to get away from. I got stationed an hour and 45 minutes away from. And so that also led to just a lot of just dumb, stupid decisions early on in my career. Just got, I wouldn't say involved back into the lifestyle that I was directly in, but, going home to see some old friends, and so some of that old mindset just wouldn't, go away, and just trying to prove that I was, I don't know, man. I wasn't like a quote unquote gangbanger, you know. Now I was a big affiliate with a lot of people that were, involved in that world, and that's what got me in a lot of trouble. So going back home and just going to some of the hangouts, some of the parties, just wasn't conducive. So my first 4 years were a little rough, just because, like I said, just the mentality, the immaturity. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. Dude, you bring up a really fucking great point. And in the Mexican culture, the Hispanic community, whatever, Latino, all of it, right? There's this family familiarity to things on the opposite side, right? Whether it be, below the belt where you're talking about a criminal element, or even below the belt of the blue collar element where it's your dad and grandfather all grew up working the fields. I'm like, yeah, so what? Now they do trucks, and now I'm over here doing whatever, right? And now they're doing, everybody moves on with life. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters how you get there and where you end up. Yeah. And if you keep going. So knowing that you had, you touched back in, and that must have been excruciatingly difficult, right? Because I've noticed in the culture of the Hispanic community too, it's where, it's a crab trap. Okay. You see somebody doing better than you, and there is this, and it's even in the veteran military community, it's usually ego driven, where you don't want to see you don't want other people to do bad, but not better than you. And I've noticed that a lot in different things, and it kind of culminates, like you're saying, it's not conducive to the career, that of which you ended up doing 22, right? And I go, that's amazing, because here you are, reflecting back in 2000, getting to your first command, touching up for the first 4 years, and believe it, you deployed with the amphibs, right?
Yeah, so that was, I did my first deployment at, which also ended up being into the Iraq conflict, right? The initial push in 2003.
So let's do you mind if we jump in a little bit about that? We could,
no, not at all.
So how did you then, you're into amphibs, you're in there for your first rotation to the initial push, right? I think 2000, was it 3 or 4? 3? Okay. So no matter what, here you are, you got yourself educated, you had a little bit of adversity. What was that first deployment like? And what was the initial push like? Because it was very different in the later years.
Yeah. So that initial push, we were actually on holiday block leave. So it was Christmas block leave, Christmas, New Year block leave, when everyone got recalled. I believe we all got recalled on December 28th, if I remember correctly. The whole unit came back, and we got told, hey, we are going to load up and head to Kuwait. And so on January 7th, we all, the ships came down from Norfolk and right there on Onslow Beach, and we splashed the beach and splashed onto the ship and rowed the ship over to Kuwait, splashed off the ships and floated into Kuwait, and then I staged at Camp Shoup. We staged there for, I don't remember how many exact days, but on March 19th, President Bush declared major conflict in Iraq against Saddam Hussein. And on March 19th, that evening, the jets flew overhead, started doing their runs. And on March 20th, the whole unit, it was a sea of Marines, tanks, trucks, everything, Humvees, AVs, and we just pushed forward across that line. And when we talk about the crossing that line, I've tried to find some pictures, and I think you can find them online, but it literally was a barbed wire fence with a big opening, where the engineers have blown an opening, and we just crossed that's what separated Kuwait from Iraq. And we crossed into Iraq on that day.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And it was definitely a big difference from all my other deployments, because all of my other ones that involved me going either to Iraq or Afghanistan, we flew into country, and this one we floated in there. And then when we were done, we got back on the ships and floated back home. So it was very, now that I look back at it, this is probably the first time I really look back at it. It's kind of like, I don't know. It feels like the old, World War II type of movies.
A bit surreal.
Yeah. Because after that, like I said, every time after that, I just got
Flown
right
in.
Yep.
Flown in. My experience, we flew in 06. Early 06. And it was just before the Super Bowl, right? Or actually during the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, that day of it, we flew from one place to the other. It was, California to Bangor to, I think it was Ireland, then Ireland to Kuwait. And you fly in. And I was like, what the fuck are we doing? And everybody's like, yeah. And then the stewardess were coming through, or flight attendants. I don't fucking know what they want to be called. And she was, the guy in front of me, she was like, tap, excuse me, sir, can you scooch in your machine gun, please? We're trying to get the drinks through. And I'm like, all right, this is fucking war. All right. Like, I don't know. I'm just going to Valium. Right. Like,
right.
So I don't know, man, that's so intense too, for you to reflect back on it. And being on a ship, I've never been on a ship. That's one of the things that I always kind of say, like, I don't know if I would have fit, I'm just a wide-bodied Mexican, right? Like, I'm like, hey, and I think that's a really cool, that you went in, you guys did your things, you guys ripped back out and you floated out. Now in this first initial push, it got pretty spicy, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. That's something that a lot of the guys that I talked to in that the 2006 deployment, right? Because I was with the Shock Trauma Platoon in Friss. So a lot of the guys that rotated with us, they'd been rotating back and forth, and I was a map from NMCSD. So I got mapped out, boom, bap, and then I ended up back, right, after the 9-month tour, whatever you want to call it. And so I never really got that that connection with your Marines, the connection with the command, that whole actual history of, getting to know the people you're deploying with,
right.
Getting to actually integrate into the systems of what you're doing. It was just fucking go, bye. Now go this way. I'm like, okay.
Right.
Okay. So for you, what was that like, transitioning from, of course, that tour, and then coming back to the States in 03?
So I've definitely been on both sides of the fence where with AAVs, I was with those boys for 3 years before we actually pushed into country, roughly 3 years. So a lot of my sergeants that I went in there with, and corporals, we had known each other for a while, training together. And then unfortunately, when we pushed in, I was involved in the Battle of Al-Nazari on March 23rd of 2003, which we ran into a perfect U-shaped ambush, and then fought for the next 7 hours, for each other. And then I was credited with saving Marines' lives and was awarded the Navy Cross for my actions on that day. But I've also been, like you said, where I was a MAP or an augmentee, right? And I think that sometimes does a little bit of a disservice, especially for young corpsmen that haven't experienced a unit cohesion that works together, right, for so many years, and each other. When we talk about family, that was and still is family for us till this day. You know what I'm saying? And when I was augmented to other units, not saying I didn't give my all, by no means, but I did 9 total deployments in my 22-year career, and 5 of them were boots on ground with the Marines.
Yeah.
Like I said, not discrediting any other units that I went with and the experience that we had together, but there's a reason why 22 years later, I'm still very much in contact with the majority of my AAV brothers, right? Which with other units, I mean, there's some units I can't even tell you some of the people's last names. We could be walking down the same street and I wouldn't even recognize those Marines. And
the job adapts too. That's something that you say, you skimmed over it really, really humbly, and I love it. Right. you were awarded the Navy Cross, okay, for your actions there. Yeah, I did some shit, saved some lives, and then of course, actually, But I'm like, yeah, that whole instant of what you're bringing up is relative to the entirety of what we're talking about in the veteran community right now, right? Kind of like what we were talking about before, in the show notes. The issues are simple, right? You have this camaraderie, this brotherhood. You develop these relationships with the men and women that you deploy with, mainly men, because AAVs is men. Okay. And you have these resources that you have to tap into, right? You mention things, and I've had these conversations with a lot of gentlemen that have been in the thick of it, where they don't go, yeah, we got in there, we fucked shit up, we had a beautiful day. No, it's like we got fucked up. We went right into a perfect fucking U-shaped ambush, And it's like, God damn it, that's so true. You reflect back about the things that you never imagined possible, right? Like that day, and I don't want to peel back the layers or scars or scabs, but that day you probably did things that you yourself didn't even recognize. You were just working and working and working and working and working.
100%.
That's the reflectant of the job, right? That's the true self of what I call the soul, the human soul, right? You were able to perform for your unit, your men, and for the lack of better words, I guarantee you didn't go all good all the time.
Right.
Nobody's walking away with this fucking shit unscathed. Okay, some of us aren't coming back, and these are the men that you've developed these relationships for 3 years. And then to say that you even had, the mutual, the mutual experience of being a MAP, and being like, yeah, dude, like I ripped in, ripped out, fuck, I know some of them key dudes that I was like in the gym with, like we're pretty cool still, we're fucking bros, but it's not like, hey, dude, what do you mean we have, oh, okay, yeah, no, I'll be, no, right? It's different. And that's something that, let's go back to it. So you're there, you come back, you had that awarding, that designation, which is a huge recognition in the military, right? It's a valorous decoration. There's a lot of procedures and policies in that, and, of course, politics. And being a young Mexican man, I could just say, look, you probably had to carry some heavy burdens after that shit. And it probably wasn't the fucking funnest job, okay? Like even probably still today. A lot of people don't talk about those things as if, because it's a thing that becomes a cultural division, right? Where we don't know how it feels to not be what we are, right? And others don't know how it feels to be us. So it's very difficult to articulate, hey man, this unit that I whipped out with, and this is what happened. I did get that, but it's just shit. It's different now. Like I go do this stuff, I go do that. And, people give me this recognition, and it could, really influence you on how you self-perceive, right? So how did that then shift your mentality, or did it shift your mentality? Did it force you to really kind of reevaluate, that education that you really forced yourself to get through the Navy as a young man, not maybe center focused, but to the point where you're like, fuck, this is life, and you're doing it, and it's coming at you 100%, What was that experience like coming from that initial deployment? And then we'll tap into the other few, because I really want to hear, what your MAP experience was, but what was that like coming home and realizing maybe not, maybe it did shift, maybe it didn't, but how did that feel coming home and getting that?
So, like you said, there's a lot of politics interplay when it comes to high valorous medals like that, right? So it took, let me see, March of 2003. I didn't get the Navy Cross awarded to me till August of 2004. So you're talking about a year and a half, right, before it actually got presented to me. And actually, if I was to pull up my citation, it was actually dated, I want to say it was like June of 2004. So the big Navy had already signed off in June or July of 2004. So it still took them a month or two before, at that time, Secretary of the Navy Gordon England came down and presented it to myself. So I came back from that initial push of Iraq in June of 2003. And in November of 2003, I was in the mountains of Afghanistan with 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines operating out there.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I came home and 4 months later, I was gone to another war. And that's why if you look at my picture, when I was first awarded of it, I already have a like 3 rows of ribbons, because I'd already gone to 2 different deployments on 2 different for lack of a better term, battlefronts, right? Two different wars, two
completely
different countries.
too. Yeah.
So, but one thing that I realized was kind of two things. First and foremost, on March 23rd, I realized it was game time. All of the little kid bullshit that I was involved in, getting into, just being immature and stupid, was like, this is what you signed up to do, and it's time to fucking go. A lot of people, like you said, those awards aren't given out because we went on a 10-mile hike and everyone came home and we had, beers and pizza at the end of it, Valor's awards.
Exactly. Yeah,
Valor's
fucking
awards,
beers and pizza. Yeah. It goes a long way, but that ain't it.
Right. Valor's awards are given because it was a bad fucking day, and I understand it from the sailor's perspective of, shit, man, like, dude, that's a fucking Navy Cross. Like, I want to hear your story. I want to, what the fuck? Like, it must be fucking dope, but living through it, you realize it's not, man. It's like, what everyone, might think was, shit, man, you did such a great fucking job. In my mind, it's like, man, I lost 18 brothers, man, in one fucking day, dude, in less than half of a day, a quarter of a day, 6 hours. In 6 hours, we lost 18 brothers. You know what I'm saying? Two of them were my AAV Marines, Sergeant Bitts and Corporal Chanawangsi, which are two of my greatest mentors. To the day they paid the ultimate sacrifice. Lessons that they taught me, I carry on till this day as a man, as a human being, as someone that strives to be the best leader I can be, even though I'm retired now, still trying to give back to our community. But yeah, so I realized, like I said, that this is my profession. This is what I want to do. B, I realized that what I thought was going to be a short 5-year stint no longer existed. As cliche, as cheesy as people might want to see it, after September 11th, and then especially after March 23rd of 2003, I knew I was where I belonged. I found out that I had a skill set that I was really good at. And one of the reasons I knew I was really good at that skill set is because we all play a role on that battlefield. My role wasn't to shoot back at anyone. My role was to take care of those wounded and injured Marines. And I knew I could do that because I had 175 badass fucking Marines staring down at evil. Yep. When people like Fonseca, how could you have done what you did that day? I tell them that. I said, because I had 175 Marines that had fire going on towards evil, towards men that wanted to destroy us. I knew I had brothers that were doing their job. And how dare I not do my job and to take care of them? So, to me, when I look back at March 23rd of 2003, to me, it's not like a movie where I see explosions or hear gunshots or hear screaming or yelling. And I'm sure all that was going on around me, but I was just so hyper focused on my casualties. Why was I that way? Because like I said, I knew I had 175 Marines that were taking care of that threat. They didn't need me to focus on a threat. They didn't need me to focus on where machine gun nests were at or mortar round units were at. You know what I'm saying? They needed me to focus on the casualties, and that's what I did. And I'm so glad that for whatever reason, my mind was able to do that at that moment, because my PTSD was never revolved around, loud noises, cars backfiring and me getting scared. Till this day, I love fireworks. It's never made me, scared of them or anything like that.
Yeah.
It never triggers anything of me. My PTSD just revolved around the fact that the Navy took some punk 18-year-old kid, gave him this skill set, but never gave them the skill set to change his mentality of, hey, this is who you are now. So I always carried around with me that I was never really worthy of much. I failed a lot throughout life. You know, my father reminded me of that constantly, that I was a failure, that I'd grow up to be mediocre. And so when they put an award on your chest, and now, you know, titles like hero are coming around, and people are thanking you for your job, my mind just focused on the fact that, but really, am I lost 18 guys because I couldn't do my job as well as what I thought should have been in order for someone to be awarded that Navy Cross. And so it was just a lot of the you know, what we call survivor's guilt, you know, why
deprecation,
you know, why was I afforded the privilege to come home to my family when I felt that I wasn't worthy of it, right? Because other men that I saw that were great leaders, you know, small unit leaders, sergeants and corporals, you know, ended up paying the ultimate sacrifice, and they didn't get to come home. They were so much more worthy of coming home than I was, you know, and they didn't. And so it took me a long time to finally understand. And this is through mentorship, through other men that also have crosses, whether it's in the Navy, Army, Air Force, being a lifetime member of what's known as the Legion of Valor of the United States of America. I came to realize that award, and I still see it that way till this day. It'll never change for me ever. That award is honestly a big unit award. Even though it is given to one person, I see it as a big unit award because it took all of us to unfortunately 175 of us didn't come home. 162 of us came home, but it could have been so much more worse if the whole unit didn't do what we needed to do to gain battle space superiority and to ensure that each one of us, as many of us, could come home to tell the tale of our brothers, our 18 brothers that paid the ultimate sacrifice that day. So the way I see it now is, for whatever reason, man, you know, whatever you believe in, you know, I'm a devout Buddhist. I believe in a lot of energy. Is that my 18 brothers, for whatever reason, saw that I was strong enough to carry that Navy Cross for them to share their story. You know, now have I, in my personal opinion, have I always honored that? Absolutely not. I've had a lot of mistakes and failures in my life and in my career. You know, have I always handled it with the best of grace? Absolutely not. But I don't beat myself up for it anymore because, like I said, it's just a very unique experience. I mean, it was 32 years before that any other corpsman had been awarded the Navy Cross. You know, It was since Vietnam. And now you're talking about 2003, right? This action happens. We're in 2025. It's been 22 years. No other Navy corpsman has been awarded the Navy Cross. You know, so it's a very unique experience. And I've learned to stop comparing my experiences to anyone else. You know, because I've also learned that 175 men went into the Battle of Anazaria. 175 different experiences came out of that. You know,
see, and that's fucking so powerful. And I'm so glad, you know, honestly, I honestly can't say it enough that you sharing this and being vulnerable enough to present an opportunity to emulate, right? Where, man, I fuck up, man. I beat myself up, man. I'm not perfect, you know, this, that, and the third. But I'm telling the stories for those that didn't come home. Right. I'm carrying this cross, literally bearing the cross. Right. Christians are going to get so mad at me.
I know.
And I'm Christian. It's the worst. And so it's like, I believe honestly that we carry these burdens for so long, and we're giving these energies, right? These opportunities. And as unique as yours is, right? You get the luxury of carrying such a large burden for everybody else. And I'm not saying that lightly. It sucks. That fucking sucks, bro. I'm glad nobody knows my name. Like, shit, nobody can be like, hey, boopity boop, man, you really fucked up. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, shit. Like, nobody's rubbing it in my nose. Like, oh, you're failing everybody you ever cherished. You know, I was like, what the fuck? And I know that happens, right? That happens to me, and I'm a regular fucking dude, right? I carry the burden of those that we weren't able to, get home to make sure they got here. Zachary M. Elliday was a Navy corpsman, passed away in 2006. That was one of the most impactful situations that I was in. Salvador Guerrero, he passed away on the same day. And, that there was a lot of people that passed away, and that's the thing, is that you realize that energy doesn't die. Okay. It transfers, it transcends. There's this beauty within storytelling, right? You sharing, Al Nazria with us and sharing that burden of what the Navy Cross is, the truth of it. It's a huge valorous decoration. Okay. And I get why so many people leverage these things, either as a political asset or weaponizing as a veteran, whatever, there's so many people, trying to get into that hemisphere of influence for good or bad. Right. And I could only imagine what that feels like. Right. Because the job didn't finish. You came home and that was 4 or 5. So 2018 more years or some, whatever years of military fucking service. What was that like? You know what I mean? Like, what was that like for you to transfer, go to the next command, do all these 9 fucking deployments? Okay. I got 1.5. I call 1.5. It was technically 2. Okay. Technically 2, 1.5. I got an extended and a delayed. And then they gave me 1.5. They gave me 2 little thingies and I was like, I'm good. But what I realized was there's so many, you said it, 175 men went into that battle. 175 experiences came out completely different.
Right.
It's something that's so beautiful that you articulated very well, yet I completely comprehend it's not the easiest thing to carry. So when you came home now, looking forward after transitioning from that command to the next, and we can dive into all those other deployments. We will definitely get into them. I think it's a beautiful thing. But the map one is the one I'm kind of curious to, kind of say, hey, I did the one where I was insulated and, raised by the men around me. And then I did the one where I just go, boop, boop. What was that like for you? What was the difference, would you say?
I think the biggest difference was those other deployments that I was just kind of in and out, you get told, hey, you're being augmented, right? And so then you go, maybe you meet that unit 3 months before the deployment actually goes, just so you can do a little bit of training with them. And so I think what that allowed me to do was compartmentalize and just see it. And if anyone ever sees this, that I was on those deployments on, I don't want anyone to think that their life and or who they were was not special to me, because at the end of the day, they were my Marine brothers and sisters. Because my other deployments were integrated units, as what we call the front lines were very blurred, right?
Oh yeah.
I tell people all the time, I was with the motor transport unit in 2005 in Iraq in 2005 and got into more static conflicts than I ever did with the grunt unit, and so when the people are like, oh, can women really perform in combat? Does having women in combat, distract men, because we want to go and save the women more than the other men? In my personal point of view and opinion, no, it does not matter. I've seen both ends of the spectrum. I've seen men coward in the face of danger, and I've seen women cower in the face of danger. I've seen men fucking stand up against great odds and overcome those, just as well as I've seen women do the same thing. And I'm very glad I had those experiences, because when all of this talk comes around and you have men and women from different walks of life, now that I was a leader and they come knock on my door and be like, HM2, HM1, I'm really having a struggle with this, I was able to lend my personal experience, not just an opinion, not just, what sometimes I think, as leaders, you have to force feed the Kool-Aid, as we say, right? To our personnel. But I was able to just really be genuine with them and share them, like you said, these stories, right, that you don't hear, right? You just hear the swipe of the pen of new policies being changed. I was able to share stories, personal stories of what I saw on and off the battlefield and what it took for a unit to be successful. But like I said, I feel those augments really allowed me just to decompartmentalize. And when people were so distraught that, oh my gosh, we have casualties, we have this, And at times I see it now that it came across very callous, but I would tell some of my junior corpsmen, like, you don't even fucking know these people. Stop crying, because that's not doing anyone any good right now. It's their emergency. They're the ones dying on the table, not you. Get your fucking head together, because we need to be our best for these Marines, airmen, soldiers, whatever it was. Like I said, in 2005, I was with the motor transport unit out of Al-Assad.
Oh, nice.
But I was augmented to 2nd Medical Battalion, Bravo Surgical Company. So, you know, everyone else worked out of a hardened structure. So when I wasn't running convoys, that's what I did. I ran convoys all the time. When I wasn't running convoys, I was in that medical hospital helping with all the casualties. And that's where, you know, I would tell a lot of these first time deployee corpsmen, right? And we called it coming through the back door. And we hear, oh, we have angels inbound. Angels were our KI-8.
Yeah.
You know, angels are inbound. And you automatically see the sadness. Oh, man, we lost some people. And even now that I see it, I can see in the video how it looks callous, right? But it's like, dude, you don't have time for that shit, man.
It's so true.
Your pity party is not going to save lives. It's your skill set. So,
exactly. Dude, that's so powerful that you brought up the 2nd Med Surgical Battalion, because like I think that's the same group of people I ripped out with the 2nd MLG that was attached to in Al Qaim in 2006 in Barnhill Trauma Center. Yeah. And we got to do a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, there was never a shortage of work, but what you're saying is very true, right? The emotions kind of kick in. Yeah, we had, you know, KIs. We had a lot of people come ripping through, you know, coming by and doing these things. Bad things happen. It's war, believe it or not. You know, and one of the things, though, you mentioned, and it's being callous. And I don't think it's callous. I think it's being stoic, right? You're presenting the information in a pragmatic way that to you should make sense, right? That's difficult, right? Especially when we're talking about integrated or other than, you know, just men, where you have these fluctuations of things. Like where I was at, I am pretty sure Al-Assad was the same way, because it was way more built up than Al Qaim, right? Depending on what year too. There was a lot of things occurring other than the war, which MASH, you know, covers very well as a, you know, storytelling book, or I'm sorry, I think it did start as a book, actually, a TV series. So. And so when you look at that and you're here, you know, you've done these things, you've seen these things, you understand through experience, hey, I actually got more static, you know, confrontations doing this thing. You know, we did have a line, and then the lines blurred as we integrated into this society called Iraq, right? And as we went into these regions, we found out that there's these Sunnis, there's these Shiites, there's these Yazidis. Nobody fucking talks about the Yazidis. Right. It just blew my mind. Here's a blonde-haired, fucking blue-eyed, green-eyed child, and I'm like, hey, where's your mom and dad? Okay, right. What are we doing? Am I fucking tripping? Did somebody slip something in my coffee? You know, and this is the reality of what it was. And I remember so vividly exactly what you're saying. Those situations where emotions, you don't got time for that shit. When angels are inbound, that you were usually doing things to coordinate to minimize exactly what you're talking about. Because in 2006, we had the know with all, whatever the fucking saying is. We knew to minimize, you know, when it's black, you know, when it's blacked out, you know, dark, you know, hey, we move the angels at night, right? Try to do that. We try to move things differently. We have a very select crew, you know, all of these different things. We go down to literally a skeleton crew to minimize impact, right? And the sadder part, though, that I got to see was the impact because of bad calls, you know, certain things, certain influences, leaderships not being as experienced in certain things. And you know, as a young corpsman, you're right. You know, you're ripping in, you're ripping out. You don't really have the luxury of integrating and being a part of the real command. You know what I mean? Like I loved everybody I deployed with. Okay, I really do. I'll do anything and anything I still can do for them. Right. A lot of my brothers and sisters I still talk to. We keep in touch, but it's not the same. Like a lot of my military experience was very. I want to say it was acquaintances. Right. It was acquaintance based, very, very loving, very caring. And I love everybody still. Right. And to this day, to hear you having the same type of, you know, I don't want to say emotional barriers, but guards and earned guards and reasons why, because pragmatically, look, it's your skill set that's needing to be done right now, not your opinion, not your thoughts, not your feelings. You need to go in, you need to plug, you need to stop the bleeding, start the breathing, and let's pack them and tube them, right? And so to hear that, it's very powerful, dude, because a lot of gentlemen don't speak out this way. Where you see a lot of the quote unquote bro vets, right? And they talk about, yeah, we don't want no bitches in our field and combats. And I'm like, well, look, honestly, like everybody has a role to play. Okay. In our, okay, I'm sharing probably too much. We had the Moulin Rouge. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a nickname. Okay. Guess who lived there? All the females. What I can say is, look, things happen. All right. Yeah. War is very different. There's a lot of parameters of human influence, and there's a lot of dynamics going on, politics too. Jesus Christ. And when you look at that, right, here you are as a young man. These are your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth fucking deployments that we're talking about, where you're getting involved in the actual Kool-Aid, like you were saying, right? You are the Kool-Aid. Mm-hmm. How did that now then transition to you where you found out, hey, dude, I'm 22 years in, I'm good. Like, when did you decide to retire, and how did that process go initially?
Yeah. So, but real quick, to kind of finish up the thought of the previous question was, you also asked like how it was afterwards, right?
Yeah.
After being awarded the Navy Cross, it definitely, one thing I did see is you is it preceding? Yeah, like your reputation, my reputation preceded me, right?
Gotcha.
So I would walk into a room full of corpsmen and Marines, and I didn't have to work to gain anyone's respect or anyone's credibility, you know? And I learned really quick to be careful with how I put information out or how I wanted to train, because I learned that no one really questioned me too much afterwards, and anything, especially after I became an HM2 and was now senior line corpsman with some units and was actually leading corpsmen, and I was the one responsible for making sure their training was up to par and everything. It was really easy for me to tell my chiefs or my gunnies or my first sergeants, like, hey, you want your corpsman to be successful? Yeah, Fonseca, then just stay the fuck out of my way. Let me do what I need to do, and I can guarantee they're going to succeed. And so that for me allowed me such great breathing room, which also allowed my mind to start realizing, hey, you know what, Luis? You might not be good at life or being a sailor, but you're a fucking great ass corpsman.
Yeah.
And if there was ever one thing I would ever toot my horn on, was my skill set as a corpsman. I even till this day, brother, like I've been retired, going on 4 years. I think I could, and it might be a little egotistical or pride of me, but I think like even if there was a firefight right here, in front of me right now, and I need to go do tourniquets and start doing IVs, that I could still hold my own. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But anywho,
I bet you can. That's something that I play with in the back of my head constantly. These scenario-based practices that you just don't leave.
Right. Right.
To carry the conversation back over, actually, so we do hit it, because you said training, right? You're making sure the next guys are trained up. You probably do this constantly. You review in your head, and you're like, man, I got my attorneys. I'm all ready to roll. What was the most important aspect, and then we'll go back to the years, whatever, retirement. What was the most important aspect that you impressed upon your junior corpsman to practice? Like, i.e., was it like, for me, it was always, I always say, talk to your people, right? Get to know them, actually listen, right? Because a lot of the times when people show up into your office, they may be masked up, a little bit guarded. All right. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know if they're going to tell you what's actually wrong, but that's something I always learned was actually listen, do genuine listening. Right. What was something that you learned that you would say that you impressed upon your junior corpsman and stuff?
So first and foremost, I think that is probably the number one thing that I inadvertently didn't realize that I did was to teach my personnel to really embed yourself with your team, right? And that includes all aspects, learning their job, because you never know if you might need to pick up that rifle or drive that 7-ton or whatever it is, right?
Exactly.
To be a genuine, compassionate corpsman, because that's going to allow you to see the things that other leaders or other personnel might just tell that Marine or sailor, like, suck it the fuck up. Let's push forward. No, our job is to look past that and be like, hey, look, I understand Gunny is being a dick right now, but come on over here, brother, sis. Let's talk, man. Like, I've been noticing some shit. You're going to save a lot more lives doing that than you ever will on that battlefield. Another thing that I always try to remind my junior sailors and corpsmen, especially once we started doing live tissue training out in the fleet, and it was no longer part of just the SOCM community, the special ops community, right? So once we started doing live tissue training, started learning how to do chest tubes, intubation, and all that stuff, I would tell them all the time, like, you know what, that's good to know, but that's not what saves lives. What saves lives is the basic fundamentals of being a corpsman. Learning how to stop bleeding, learning how to make sure that heart is still beating and that person is still breathing. That is it. And that's why I always would tell people, like, I could take a monkey off the street and teach him how to be an FMF corpsman and have him be successful. And it's all because of the basic skill sets. I tell them all the time, read my citation. My citation doesn't state, Fonseca ran through a gun of whatever, right? A wall of bullets and started doing intubation and chest tubes and emergency crikes. And no, it states, I stabilized casualties with bandages and tourniquets. That's it.
Yep.
That is it.
It's just so fucking amazing to hear it because it's so much the truth. Okay. I don't even know why hearts just popped up. That was weird.
Yeah.
I'm like, I fucking double blow, no way. Dude, it's so true because a lot of those units and stuff, those specialized trainings, they're great. Okay. Don't get me wrong. Right. However, it's the key basics, that's what keeps the human body growing. Like I've noticed through so many different injuries, so many different situations, and so many different areas of life where if we don't stop the bleed, right? Now I'm noticing it in emotional, psychological, spiritual realm, right? Where we're like, hey, our society, sadly enough, dipping out 22, 44 a day, whatever the actual numbers are, right?
Right.
And the bleed, we haven't been able to find where they're bleeding out from. That's kind of where I'm like, hey, they're just like all over the place. But for you and hearing that, God damn it. It's not just validation. It's something that where it reinforces, the same things that I truthfully believe in. Like, dude, this isn't a complex gig. We're overthinking it, but at the same time, the balls in the meat, right, of what we got to be doing here is that good tourniquets, complete occlusion. Okay. Like my guy, me and another partner and I were just talking about this and we were laughing because he goes, Joey, check this video. I watched it. I saw it. And it's a higher echelon of training where people are paying a lot to get. And they're being so lackadaisical on their tourniquets. And this is even just moulage, right? That's the reason why I love live tissue labs. Okay. I'm not sure where we're at, as far as a society right now anymore. But I can tell you right now, 07, 08, I'm sorry, 06, between 06 and 7, right? Oh, no, 7. It would be 2007. I worked in a live tissue lab. It was the greatest experience I ever had, other than the deployment. Right, actually training people in these these excruciatingly rare occurrences where you're going to intubate, where you're going to drop a chest tube, where you're going to pericardial synthesis, where you're going to do a jugular vein countdown, central line, femoral intersection, all these different shits, right? One of my favorite labs, of course, was the femoral bleeds, and we were just training, how do you stop the femoral bleed and what we were going to do. And we, pop the pig, and it just, whoa, everybody's, oh. One of the senior chiefs, he was my favorite. He let me shank it up really good. He was Mexican too, Hernandez, Senior Chief Hernandez. I'm pretty positive that was his name. And he'd shank it up and then just sprays everywhere. And everybody's it just overreacts. And he goes, Martinez, help him out. And he'll go, boop. I didn't really lick my finger, okay?
Right.
But that's the simplicity of a lot of this situation. Apply direct pressure. All right, that's what we're taught day one. Apply direct pressure, tourniquet. Okay, why is it that EMTs do this shit in actual life in the world? I don't know. It's really dumb. But apply the fucking tourniquet, deal with the consequences when the son of a bitch can sue you because they're not dead, okay? H1 Buchanan told us that when we were going through FMSS. all of these good aspects of being a good corpsman, having that confidence. Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, when you I could hear it in your voice, you're like, fuck yeah, if shit started popping off right now. You know, like, I'm just, I can make a cravat. You know, I got keychains, dude, and a stick. I'm good. You know, fucking MacGyver, right? And I'm like, dude, that is so refreshing, because a lot of the conversations, of course, in the veteran community, you're right. It's this hyper focus on the things that are not actual to your job, right? Your job isn't fucking shooting back. Okay. There's plenty of Marines that are really better at that. Okay. So much more better at that than anybody else on the planet, that in certain instances, they literally had investigations on how accurate their shots were because so many headshots occurred. And I'm like, yeah, that's the fucking Marines, dude. Like, I don't know how to put it any other way than, yeah, you fuck with the Marines, you're going to get your head fucking gaped out. It's just going to, that's the life. Okay. Don't do it. And to hear that you reflecting back on all these different things, the stories, you know, where you're like, yeah, man, like I had 175 Marines, you know, fighting that evil, right? Ooh, that's fucking dick hard right there, bro. And I'm like, yeah. And then, you know, to hear it in all the other proliferations of your life, to then sum it up to, hey, and keep it fucking basic, kids. KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Yep. Because these are the same things that I was taught, right? That heritage, that what you said, mentorship of genuine good leaders that may or may not be around anymore. But those genuine key takeaways, they transcend life. They transcend all things, not just, you know, being a corpsman, being a sailor, being a dad, being a student, right? It transcends all of it. And to find those key people, and that's what I love about the conversation, is having those key people do what they're good at, and then you do what you're good at, right? That's something that I am just, there's a bunch of helicopters flying over right now. I live right in the path between Camp Pendleton, Miramar, and all their little flight operations. Yeah. So I get to see all kinds of cool little fucking planes. I'm like, oh, cool. I know what that is. But it's just so powerful, dude. And to keep it going, keep the conversation going. I could. I'm just like, dude, like I'm just fucking so cheesed out right now about it. It's just, it's humbling. It's validating. It's honestly some of the shit to actually keep talking about it then. It's some of the things that I genuinely needed to hear. Because when I got out, you know, it's been 15 years of very difficult road. And my wife and I, it's very difficult, right? Not just trying to get help, but trying to get better, you know? And getting those things squared away for your support systems to be able to provide you that. Hearing that, what you're saying, right? Not just as, you know, you notice the credibility, you notice that your respect level, you know, the adherence to what you know as experiential knowledge and validating and verified through combat, right? Is now being proliferated in these learning experiences. So these kids, you know, me and Forrest Faison were actually having this conversation a few weeks ago. These kids are prepared for that next evolution of warfare. Okay. Right. If we think we're going to keep fighting just a couple guys in pajamas and caves, I'm not saying that wasn't hard. Literally, Afghanistan's put a fucking dick up everybody's ass that ever stepped foot in that place. Yeah. Okay. Alexander the Great, fucking keep on rolling. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting place that we're now developing these things, right? These wars that are potential. And it scares the ever-loving shit out of me. But knowing that we have good brothers like yourself that say, hey, no, keep it simple, stupid. You know, don't fucking focus on the hype. You know, don't run around with 50 fucking grenades in your backpack, you idiot. Yeah. Right? Like, just, hey, make sure you maybe 50 tourniquets, because maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 for one guy. Maybe you need to, you know, do that. You know, maybe. But seeing the potential in it, it really... It's what I really needed to hear, dude. Like, not just as a show person, but as a human body, you know, and as a human man. I'm like, fuck yeah, Luis, dude, that's fucking dope. Thanks, bro. Air dap, right? And I'm like, right. So yeah, to get it back onto yourself before I just fucking like break down crying like a bitch.
You good?
22 years. You did 22 years as a United States Navy corpsman. Okay. What was that like? How did you come to the determination to say, all right, I've done my time. Here we go. It's the next phase of Luis. How did that happen?
How it happened was, you know, and I think you mentioned it a little bit. I had 4 NJPs in my Navy career, all alcohol related incidences, because I just couldn't deal with that survivor's guilt. You know what I mean? And contrary what anyone thinks, yeah, you can absolutely go into a psychiatric appointment, tell the truth, and then come out and know that you're going to get separated.
Yeah.
So I told him just enough. When I would get in trouble, I would tell the mental health team just enough to say that I was working on my mental health, and I knew all the right things to say to end treatment early to get me back out to the fleet and keep on fighting. But also came at the cost of my mental health, of really healing from all of the shit that I had just seen and been through. And so 14 years accumulated to July 8th of 2018, where I put a Glock 21 to my head and pulled the trigger, and the round ended up basically stovepiping. I'm sure the ammunition was fucked up too, for whatever reason, because the lead tip of the round didn't go off. So when the round was stuck in the ejection chamber, was the whole thing. By that time, I kind of stopped having fun in the Navy, and I remember there was a old crusty Master Chief when I was really young. Back in the early 2000s, 2001s, you didn't see your Master Chiefs unless it was like the big unit, event, right, where they came out and talked about how their shit didn't stink and they walked on water, and that's why they're Master Chiefs. And if you don't behave the way they do, you'll never be that person. But I remember asking a Master Chief back in those days, I don't remember who it was, what's kept you going so long? Why are you still in this organization? And basically it was something along the lines of, they've been having fun, and the day that they realize that they're not having fun is the day they need to go. Yeah. And so around that time, I was already in 17 years, 18 years, when I had when I realized that my mental health was just tanked out. I wasn't having fun anymore. I didn't enjoy leading sailors. I didn't enjoy being a sailor. I didn't enjoy going into work anymore. Not because of anyone in particular around me. I had great sailors that helped me get through those hard times. It was just emotionally, mentally, I just was tapped out. I was done. So after having that suicide attempt, and my wife and my chief Ricardo Palacio saving my life and getting me the proper treatment, I realized at that time, I was already 18 years in. So it's everything I was afraid of losing if I spoke up and was honest. My prestigious leadership and my prestigious, respect that I had from everyone, and oh my gosh, that's H1 Fonseca. Oh wow, my security clearance, losing all that, I realized, man, I almost just lost it all permanently.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so if I am so willing to lose it all permanently, fuck it, let's give this honesty a try. And so I became very honest with who I was. And when I went to treatment that Monday morning, I decided first and foremost, I decided that me and alcohol were no longer friends. We had a great run. We were there for each other. Well, it was there for me through thick and thin, but now it definitely for me came at a life and death situation. I knew if me and alcohol stayed being friends, that alcohol would eventually win and I would no longer be here. So I just realized that I had to be very honest with everyone around me, especially my healthcare team. So my decision was for me fairly easy. I just, as much as I loved being a corpsman, as much as I loved what I did for at that time 18 years, it was time for me to hang up the hat and call it a day. And that's why even when people were like, well, Fonseca, what happens if you get selected for chief? I would tell them all the time, I don't want it. I don't care. They could select me and I'm still going to retire. Once I had my last contract took me up to the 22-year mark. I knew even if that last year I got selected for chief, like that was it. I wasn't staying in this organization anymore, and not because the organization sucked. Is just the fact of, hey, I did a lot of shit for this organization already, for this country, and it was just my time to exit. And so that's why I knew it was time for me to retire. And then secondly, I mean, before it was a E6 could only go up to 20 years, and then things changed and we could go up to 22 years. And sometimes I look back and I was like, man, I shouldn't have done those extra 22 years. But at the end of the day, I'm so glad that I did, because where I landed at my last 2 years of my Navy career, which was MCRD San Diego, I'm so glad that I got there when I was sober, because I was out of 22-year career. That was the worst duty station just due to leadership failures. But I'm so, and maybe this is me tooting my own horn now again. I'm so glad that I was there for those sailors, because I was able to, in a very sober, clear mindset, speak up and be able to really take a lot of fire for them, and that also, like at that time I was already 20 years in. I had no issues telling someone that outranked me to go fuck off because they're pieces of shit leaders. You know what I mean? And I would tell them all the time, what are you going to do? Not make me a chief? I don't give a fuck. What are you going to do? Retire me? I'm counting down the days.
Yeah.
Let's do it,
That is so beautiful, man.
So yeah, so I knew, to me, it was very clear that it was time for me to go. Yeah. And it was time for me to move on to different adventures. And that's exactly what I did, man. Was I sure on what those adventures were? Absolutely not. And we'll get into this a little bit more, I'm sure. But, upon retire, I went to the trade schools because I wanted to start up my own general contracting company. Unfortunately, disabilities, in my neck and in my shoulders. My PCM a year ago, told me, hey, Luis, you either keep in this profession, and in 6 months, I'm going to be sending you to ortho to get your neck fused and other surgeries done, or you can look at a different career path, and hopefully we can push surgery off for another X amount of years. And so I never had a clear idea of what I wanted to do, but we're very fortunate, my wife and I, that we set ourselves up to succeed post-retirement. And so, the last, I want to say 4 years of our career, we just spent it paying off every bill that we could. That way, if we were blessed to get a great disability rating, which my wife and I were, we both retired. She retired 21 years, I retired 22, and we both have our 100% permanent total disability. So we set it up that we could survive off of that here in the state of California. Now
it's very difficult. Yeah.
Now fast forward 4 years later with inflation, we're like, fuck.
Dude, it sucks being in California now. Like it has been for a while. But to hear that even yourselves, two dedicated, was she a sailor or Marine?
She was a sailor as well. She retires at HM1 at IDC.
Oh, so two sailors. There you go. Yet Navy sailors. Right. That's fucking dope, dude. You got two Navy sailors getting the things that they actually have earned and deserved. And this is something that, I'm glad you brought up, the 100% P&T, the actual ratings, getting a medical person that actually cares about you, and taking care of the things and preparing for the future and saying things like, hey, dude, bro, Luis, look, you can keep pushing this fucking button, but you're not going to be able to push it later. Like fucking all fused up. But if you pivot, same energy, same flow, we'll figure it out. That's fucking great. I'm so happy to hear that the two of you guys are getting that and being taken care of, because you hear the horror stories, even, and you're probably going to hear them from me. Shit. Like it's not the best. Right. And what I can say though, is it's nice to hear that it's going right for somebody else, period. I can't speak highly enough of what it does to the mental health to be able to provide for your family and focus on the good work, getting better, working on that guilt, that survivalist guilt, supporting the positive coping mechanisms. You know what I mean? No drinking. Hey, read whatever you read, the Bible, the Buddhist texts, whatever it is, lift it up, speak it. be loud, amplify that, right? And I think it's powerful because knowing that, I'm pretty sure it wasn't handed to you guys. You know, it's never handed. Right. Sadly enough, you know, it's always an uphill battle for all these ratings and all these things. And you're able to focus in on that. And you guys have a beautiful family and, you know, doing these different things. So now what is it that you find yourself focused in on, you know, after your transition, getting the retirement set up and everything else? And that's something too. I always say, hey, look up the Major Richard Starr Act, everybody that's listening. You know, we got to get people that not only retired, but are rated to get both. Okay. Both of them, you know, everything. Some people, they didn't do the 20, you know, so they get a little different. Right. But that's not in their, you know, their power to finish those years. And that's something that you were, you know, very, very intelligent about. Hey, you know, I had these NGPs. I'm not going to, you know, this, I don't want to ruin my that, you know, that speaks volumes to your situational awareness, because the exit plan is super important. I didn't have one and that was not good. Okay. What I can say is through these 15 years, it's gentlemen like yourself, you know, people like your wife as well, that speak up and say, yeah, you know, here's the battles that we faced. Here's the trials and tribulations. This is how we prepared ourselves. We set ourselves up for success. That's fucking beautiful, dude. So now you're no, thank you. Cause now it's fucking like, yeah, I'm doing it right. Cool. I'm not a fucking loser. I got it. You know, it's like, and that's self-talk, right? That's me. But what I'm saying is, to me, it's, I want to tell you that because I want others to hear that you're doing it right. I'm doing it right. They could do it right. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Right.
Absolutely.
And there's sadly a lot of people that don't have that confidence in the system. And I agree with it because look at the current issues. I don't want to touch too much, but when we're hyperbolically in the media, and even the secretary of the VA, we're talking, you know, hyperbolically, like, don't scare my veterans, don't scare my employees. Well, it's rumors. And I'm like, well, you got a guy over here in San Diego. Okay. I could tell you, stories, friends. But at the end of the day, we're hyper-focused on the political weaponization of the title veteran. And that's all I see, you know, in the media, in these nonprofits and everything else. And I really want to talk about your nonprofit because you guys are doing it right. And you guys are having the conversations and you guys are creating a space better. So in that, you know, how did then now where we're at over the past 22 years, you and your wife were established. Okay. What then you did after that? You know, you went to the trade schools. Okay. You got your ratings. What did you pivot into next? Because I did kind of give it away.
Yeah. No, it's all good, brother. So yeah, you know, when we were looking at retirement and what the next chapter in our life was going to be, I, you know, by no means am I a celebrity like, you know, we think of Hollywood, but you know, obviously my name carries a little bit of weight within the especially the Navy community still, right? And even the Marine Corps community. So I knew that I'd already been doing a lot of guest speaking throughout, you know, my Navy career, going to HM birthdays, Navy birthday balls, Marine birthdays, dining outs, you know, all that stuff. And you know, but after my suicide attempt, when I came back from treatment, Chief Palacios, that morning that I came back from treatment, I was gone. How long? I think like 6 weeks, something like that was the whole treatment program. When I came back, Chief Palacios, we were talking in his office, and it was like, all right, HM1, I was already HM1. It was like, going out there with your sailors. I was at Miramar, the dental clinic. I was the LPO for the dental clinic at Miramar. And I said, all right, good to go. So I go out there and I actually stand in formation with my sailors. And Chief Palacio and OIC, Commander Turner, now Captain Turner, walk out like they normally do for formation. And I see Chief's kind of like puzzle face, and he motions me to come up front. So I go up there and I go up, I was like, yes, Chief, what's up? He's like, what are you doing, Fonseca? I'm like, you told me to come out here with my sailors. I'm standing in formation, you know, thinking that, hey, you know, I'm no longer the LPO. You already picked you. They already have someone. They have someone that's a lot more mentally stronger to be able to, you know, run the not run these sailors, but you know, lead these sailors. Yeah, right. Lead these sailors. And he goes, Fonseca goes, you know, you're still my LPO, right? And I always get choked up about this part, man, because it's that's what showed me what being a caring, compassionate leader can do for anyone. someone that doesn't judge their sailors due to their past, but is in their present to help promote a better future for them. He Rick said, if you're not leading these sailors, who's gonna lead them?
Yeah.
I was like, you and Commander don't have a new LPO yet, Chief? He's like, no, you're my LPO, brother. I was like, all right, gotta go. And he gave me a big hug, and he said, Fonseca, he goes, or H1, I don't remember what he said. He goes, the only thing your sailors know, man, is that you've been taking care of a family emergency. They don't know anything.
Yeah.
He goes, it's up to you what you want to tell them. It's your story, man. And I might have switched up the little words now. It's been years.
It's all good, dude.
But basically, that's what he said. And I said, all right, gotta go, Chief. And I about faced, and I looked at my sailors, and it was the first time I ever told anyone what was going on in my head. And I told him, I said, I've been an alcoholic for 14 years. And 4 weeks ago, whatever, said I attempted to take myself out. Said, and that's where I've been. I've been in treatment for it, man. The way my sailors responded to that, the way they just came around me, hugged me, reassured me that everything would be okay, reassured me that they still respected me and believed in my leadership. If I wouldn't have had that, man, it would have been a different story.
Yeah.
Would have been not necessarily a negative outcome, but it wouldn't have been as I feel as positive as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And getting that from them made me realize that what sailors need isn't a robot to lead them. What sailors need is a genuine, compassionate leader to help them through the rough times, because that's what takes us out, man. It's the rough times. It's not the good times, man.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I started speaking my truth. I started speaking up about toxic leadership. I started speaking up about negative coping mechanisms, because alcohol is just one aspect. I mean, gambling is another one. Sex, drug use, right? Just sitting in your room, and not doing anything, isolating, all that can be negative, right? So speaking up about negative coping mechanisms, suicide prevention, I saw the way men and women just opened up with that, right? How that affected them. So I knew when retirement was coming that I wanted to continue on that mission. I just really wasn't sure how. And it was my wife that kind of put the bug in my ears, like, well, why don't we start an organization where we focus on that, mental health? And it's always my question to that was always, okay, I get that, but what are we going to do different that the other 10,000 veteran nonprofits that are out there that are doing the exact same shit that doesn't seem to be working? Let's be honest, right?
Yep.
And I didn't want to also start a nonprofit and ask people for fundage. That's why you very rarely ever hear me ask for funding, because if you need money, I have 10,000 other nonprofits that I can send you to that are going to give you money. You know what I'm saying? So we really just focused on what it was that my wife has her own suicide story. She never minds me sharing it, but I never share much of it because it's her story.
And I would really love to have that, if you're open to it, if she's open to it.
She is, absolutely. Okay. Because my wife's suicide story involves our retirement.
Yeah.
When I retired and I was so ready to go, and I got home, and I've never put on a uniform after my retirement ceremony, because I was done with that life, and to me it was a big burden, and to me maybe because I was always very blessed to not. My identity wasn't, I'm a Navy corpsman, I'm a sailor, I'm a Navy Cross recipient. My identity has always been, no, I'm Luis Fonseca, man. Yeah. This is who I am, dude. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason why I got in trouble so many times in the Navy, because I couldn't fucking just say I'm a sailor. This is, and you walk the sailor life. No, I'm Luis Fonseca. I do my own dirt shit, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sometimes I got caught, you know what I'm saying? Luckily, I never got caught with some of the big shit. And I speak about my drug use in my Navy career too, you know? Fortunately, it was always just my alcohol that got me in trouble. But my wife.
That's unfortunate. My alcohol got me in trouble, but no, that's true.
But my wife, unfortunately, 3 months after our retirement ceremony, had her suicide attempt because she was lost. She didn't, my wife retired as not just an IDC in the Navy, but she was an ISIC. For those that don't know what an ISIC is the immediate superior in command. So she was responsible for, I want to say, 6 or 8 Navy ships on the waterfront, right? Yeah. So other IDCs would come to her when they couldn't figure out, like, hey, how we're going to medevac a patient, or hey, we have this situation going on right now, how do I fix it? They call her up, and she's supposed to know it all, right? So she retired at a very prestigious, part of the IDC world.
Yeah.
And so for her, she lost a little bit of that identity, and her transition out was a little bit more rough, obviously, with her suicide attempt than mine was. Where mine was very liberating. Mine was very, I'm good. I'm done with that aspect. I don't feel like I need to pretend to be this person that I'm really not.
Yeah.
Now I can be Luis Fonseca. Now if I want to smoke weed every day, like, fuck it, no one's gonna tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying, brother? But so anywho, but we knew we wanted to help our fellow veterans and our fellow active duty brothers and sisters, because to put it into perspective, my son, our oldest son, he's 27. He was a DC man, and when he got out, he asked me, he goes, Dad, do you miss it being in the Navy? And I told him this. I said, that's a very, from where I sit, it's a very very biased question, because I told him, I said, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm still very much embedded with the Navy Marine Corps team. Mm-hmm. Every year I still get called up to go give speeches. Now that I do a lot of suicide prevention speeches, mental health speeches, I do a lot of that as well now too. I said, so I'm still giving back to the Navy Marine Corps team. It's just, I get to grow a beard now. I get to grow my hair out long. Yeah. I get to wear civilian clothes every day. So we ended up founding what we called the No Shame Warrior Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. But our mission is we go and try to help locate those veterans or active duty members that are in the critical moment of wanting to take their life. My wife actually spearheads what we call the Rapid Suicide Intervention Task Force. And what they do is, so if you're ever on social media, or if anyone ever texts you, that's it, I'm done with life, I'm over it, I'm checking out, today's the last day, whatever it is, right? And you're trying to get a hold of that buddy, that friend, and they've gone what we call radio silence in the military, right? Turned off their cell phone, turned off their social media accounts. Well, great thing about technology is we can basically find anyone. Yep. And so we use the power of technology, also the power of us knowing people in the Secret Squirrel community to help us. And it takes a process, because we learned that trying to ping a cell phone, trying to ping the GPS in somebody's car, or if you wear a smartwatch, trying to ping your smartwatch, right? Even if you have it turned off, we can still ping them. It actually involves activating a search warrant. So we've learned a lot in that, and my wife and her team, and I give them the credit because I get to be the face of the organization. I get to go give, interviews and speeches, but they really do the legwork. They've been successful in helping locate 24 veterans and their active duty members that, we're on the X, succumbing to some of them, we're succumbing to their wounds, so self-inflicted wounds, where there was, we've had some that have taken medication, that were already basically succumbing to the meds when first responders got there. We've had one where first responders got there as the gentleman was on the ladder with the noose on his head, around his neck, when first responder was knocking on the door, and we're, from what we were told with that one, the gentleman stopped for a second, was like, should I answer the door? Should I just go ahead and hang myself? And luckily they decided to answer the door. You know what I mean?
That's such a profound one for me. That's honestly how I had my attempt back in 2014. And, you bring up these valid points about being still within the community, right? You still are a part of it, very much so. And your wife has this very integral role that is helping save lives.
Yes.
And your son's here having the same experiences of missing it and longing for, and really it's a sense of purpose. Frank Merkel wrote this great book, A Man's Search for Meaning, or something like that. And it's a really great book. It talks about logotherapy and the approach to finding that sense of purpose. And it sounds like you guys have been able to iron out and really find that niche that is needed to be filled. Because you're right. There's so many nonprofits out there. Okay. They're doing, in my honest opinion, I don't know what they're doing. Okay. But some of them are doing good and some of them aren't. Some of them are very much so just consuming donation dollars. Year after year after year after year. And we're seeing the smaller mom and pop nonprofits that were propping up the actual tangible resources. The issues that we're having now seemingly to be exactly that, a communicational and a barrier to understanding. And it seems to be purposeful now. In my personal experience, it seems to be purposeful, intentional, right? You have nonprofit organizations like, we'll bring them up. The Elizabeth Dole Foundation, right? They're very much integrated in it's a family caregiver, comprehensive family caregiver program. Okay. For some reason or another, the individuals that are participating in these committees and these conversations, these legislations and these policy reforms, right? The people actually getting a seat, the stakeholders, as they call them, right? They're the ones that get to actually say, hey, no, this is the type of person that needs a person to make sure they don't kill themselves. Right. And it gets down to the point where they even scrutinize, oh, you watch American Dad? You don't need suicide prevention in your life. And I'm like, okay, like I don't, should I just go back to this?
Right.
Like, what are we doing, group? As a joke. And I don't mean it lightly, but I mean it as a joke, because when you brought that story up, it really was, my wife walked in. She was the one that saw it, and I looked at her and she goes, just don't. And she left, and I started feeling the pinch on my neck. Like, well, that's fucking gay. I don't want to fucking do this.
Yeah.
I don't really want to do this. I just feel like I'm such a fucking horrible burden to the world, And that's one of the things that even my wife and I talked to this morning. Literally one of the things I go, I feel as though my red line's this coming August. Okay. I tell everybody I talk to, my red line's August, because I've been asking for assistance for a fall that since last August, and I can't even get a neurology appointment. I can't even get a primary care doctor to follow up. They're kicking us off the caregiver program because I watch American fucking Dad. It's juxtapositionally hilarious. Okay.
Yeah.
And I will laugh all the way to the grave because that's who I am. Right. And my wife and I had this profound realization just this morning. Right. It takes a lot to stand up against that pressure. It takes a lot to ask for help. It takes a lot, like what you said. You about faced and you fucking told your family, your sailors, what the fuck was happening. And they received you. You gave them the opportunity, right, to support you, and they did, right? That is the most beautiful fucking occurrence of what happens in life that I think everybody needs. Your wife included. I can't wait to talk to her about her situation and everything, her history, her transition into this new purpose, actually getting out there and saying, hey, don't fucking do that thing. Like, we all think about it now. It's fucking crazy, right? It's almost as if somebody's pushing a button in our brain going like, oh no, you're the problem. And I'm like, no, I feel like I'm not anymore. Right. It's just too on the nose. Like people, there's a lot more conversation in it, but with your nonprofit, what was it called again?
No Shame Warrior Foundation.
No Shame Warrior Foundation. I think you guys are really fucking hitting it right on the head. I feel shameful about even admitting it. Like, oh yeah, like I was telling my wife this morning, I want to fucking die every day. And she goes, well, why? And I go, because I genuinely can't focus on the positive. There's so much negative that I can't focus on. Don't get me wrong, there's positive. Me and my children popped about 15 seeds to make sure we get a little cannabis plants for this year. And I'm like, yay, super, super exciting. And then I look at her and I go, but the situation that I'm in personally, my medical care and everything, it's not great. I'm using a walker, I'm using a cane, my falls are increasing, the pain's nuts. And I'm just taking a lot from what our conversation is and being honest. And it's scary for me. It's terrifying. It's terrifying for a 39-year-old man to say, hey guys, I need a walker. P.S. Also, I'm really thinking about not being here anymore, and what does it do for the society? Because to me, I'm putting a burden onto somebody else, and I don't want to do that, right? And I don't want to be that. And a lot of sailors and Marines and honestly human beings that are in that position that feel that way, they're genuinely good people. They're genuinely good people. That's the reason why they feel this way, that they need to remove themselves, right? And you guys have this No Shame Warrior Foundation, right? Where you're intervening where most will not, okay? It's in that critical moment. Because I get asked a lot. I called the crisis line at least 6 times in the past 3 months. Okay, they're great for a great vent, and then nothing happens. Okay,
absolutely.
It's a great vent. If that's all you need to get it, because I promise you, if you get sent over to the suicide prevention team, at least in San Diego, they're not going to do shit but send you links and a bunch of other phone numbers to call. Okay, so then that's going to antagonize the situation further. To know that there's this net. I don't want to say it's needed. I don't want to say depending on it, people, okay? You should never have to depend on this net. But Luis and his wife, No Shame Warrior Foundation, here's this net. Don't put yourself into such an isolated state, though, where you need it. Like you said, it's very difficult. It takes time still. And by the skin of their teeth, you've been able to help people. That is amazing, right? Those instances where literal seconds and minutes mattered, and you were able to step up where so many people, and I'm going to put them on blast, they're making hundreds of billions of dollars in their names. Okay. You're stepping up and doing the thing that they're claiming to do. You're stepping in and providing an actual tangible intervention. That's a huge difference between what everybody else is fucking selling us in the community. And to me, I was just, bro, like, honestly, like, hearing you say that story right now, I wasn't going to talk about this shit. I'm not talking about this shit. I was like, I'm talking to Luis about, I'm talking to Luis about good shit, like, I know, like, it's this real genuine shit. And I go, fuck.
This is life, hard. Man.
Exactly. It's life. It's life. And it comes at us 100%. I love that saying. But there are better ways, and those better ways equal better days. You know what I mean?
100%. It's, our brain is genetically wired to always focus on the negative. Why? Because that's what allows us to stay alive, right? We don't focus on the rainbows. We focus on the fire. Why? Because fire kills us. Fire hurts us, right? We don't focus on, the beautiful stream flowing down. We focus on the rapid currents flowing down, because a rapid current is what's going to kill you, right? And so it's easy for our minds to always gravitate to that negative. And one thing that I've learned through all of this and through even my own personal journey is, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, is it's not that we want to die. It's just this pain that we're living in, this darkness that we're living in, we don't see an exit out of it. And who in their right mind wants to live in pain every day of their life? No one does, right? The short amount of time that we have on this planet, right? And regardless of your beliefs, let's be very honest, none of us know for 100% sure what's going to go on after the lights are finally turned off after this, right? We have our faith, and we hope that's what's, a better world is going to be afforded to us after this one, right? A better existence, whatever you want to call it. So it's just that in those moments, and that's exactly where I was at. I just didn't see a better life. I didn't, and I didn't want to keep living through this pain. I didn't want to, keep suffering, for lack of a better term. So what was the only solution that I found? Because everything else that I was trying to do, I get it, was negative coping mechanisms, but nothing was taking the pain away. It was suppressive for a moment of time. Yes. Absolutely. But when I got clear-headed, right, when the alcohol wore off, when the drugs wore off, the same bullshit was still there. So now it's like, how do I confront life on life's terms? Right. And how do I learn how to now start, fighting with life? Right. Let's go do it.
Exactly. Dude, fucking getting that head movement, parries and shit. Dude, I fucking love it. Yeah. Because it's so true. And that's something I love, that how me and my wife are having this long conversation the past 2 days. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's about effort. I call it fighting, and you clearly do too. You're fighting to live. You're fighting you get that fucking next day, And I kind of bridged it to a different point yesterday, where I was like, man, she hates that fucking word, fighting. It makes her, it's a thing for some individuals. When the word conflict or fight or elevated speech or anything comes up, they're dead. Yeah. They're traumatized, whether it's a childhood experience or a personal belief. I don't know. It's not my job to figure it out. Mm-hmm. They're totally solely right to feel their way. She doesn't deserve to feel this way. And I tell her every day, I beg her for forgiveness. And I'm telling her, hey, I don't want to feel this way. I don't know how to change this. What I do know is that I can't shut the fuck up. Okay. Mm-hmm. I can't shut the fuck up because then I'm going to isolate and I'm actually going to do those things.
Yeah.
And for her, I go, she's my support team. She's it. Right. And now with all these, changes, parameters to whatever programs, we're fucked. We're up against the wall in a bad place. I'm using Medicare now because of, even though I'm 100% P&T and on the caregiver program, the VA cannot get me anything. Not a goddamn thing. Not in within the past 4 years, nothing to a standard of which I would say is humane. Right. And I don't use that lightly because I understand there's depths of things like, fucking Palestine happening. And I'm going like, yeah, but this isn't fucking Palestine. OK,
right.
This is motherfucking San Diego. OK, buddy.
Yeah.
Come on. Your job doesn't fucking equate to whatever fucking suffering those people are going through either. And what I can say is to have a doctor literally tell me that they have it worse than me has caused a spiral. Right. It completely uprooted the foundation that my wife and I had been working on for lack of better words, the sum of 15 years. Right. Mm-hmm. And after this fall in August, I just went right back to the conclusion. I'm going to have to ask for help. And I know what the conflict's going to be. So I sat out by my rock on my property. It was one of the last times I drank heavily. And I just sat there and I said, I am going to do this thing. And then until I sobered up, I didn't walk away from the rock. It took me about 4 hours. And I said, okay, I'm going to make sure this is a sober decision because, hey, I'm not trying to have anybody say, oh, it's the alcohol, eat a dick, right? I'm trying not to have anything politicized here, right? I'm not even going to kill myself with the gun because I don't want it to be politicized, right? Ban ropes then if you fucking hate it so much, right? Yeah. Save a veteran's life, ban a rope, go eat a dick. Right? It's just so stupid. But at the end of the day, this session of time, right? It was about 3 weeks when I finally got back on my feet and was walking with my walker. Okay. I made the decision. I goes, am I going to actually kill myself or not? And I go, all right, let's imagine. What would your children look like when you do that? Well, who is going to find you? Because it's either going to be your wife or your children. How long would it take? Because I'm a sneaky little fuck. Okay. But I can say I can make things look a lot of different ways. At the end of it, I go, why am I thinking that way anyways? Why would I ever remove myself from the love of my life, my wife, who I believe is the only reason why I'm still alive walking this earth, right? And then to take the father away from the children that are doing so good in life that, yesterday we go to this honor society thing for junior scholastics and my son's just fucking nailing life. And I love it. I love seeing him excel. I love seeing both of them excel so much where they understand because their mother's teaching them at home, homeschool, what education is. My wife's the only educated person in the household. I go, baby, you got this. Because over here, I'm not the smartest fucking crayon in the box. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I fucks good. No. And what I can say is no matter what, I look at that all the time and I go, it's not good enough. Exactly what you were saying. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. Somebody else deserved to have a beautiful family. I remember their names, okay? I say about it. I pray about it all the time. Zach Sadley did have a kid, and I think about that a lot. Did they move on? Did they even reflect about the father? Anything. It fucks with me so much so that in the midst of our conversation this morning, me and my wife, I go, what sucks is that when I share this with you, and I told her, there isn't a fight left in her, and I see it. She just quits. She goes, I just can't stay here anymore. I can't do this with you anymore. I'm done. Right. And I go, okay, so let me guess the next thing. And she goes, I'm going to leave. And I'm like, yeah, divorce. Always. It's either death or divorce with you. And I'm like, whatever, which way you fucking spin it. All I keep telling you is you don't deserve this. I don't deserve this. This situation isn't something that I made. Okay. Isn't something that I'm doing. And I'm not fighting something because it's not fighting me. I'm fighting something because it's literally pushing me over the edge every day. I send an email to a doctor, they ignore it. I send a phone call over to Congress, they ignore it. I send another email to Congress, and they finally file an inquiry over to San Diego La Jolla, the VA center, right? The director of the hospital and the director of chief of primary care make a paragraph that's so stupid and fucking lies, blatant lies, that by the end of it, they say, I'm satisfied with my new primary care physician. I'm like, no, in fact. And so we had to send a rebuttal. And this is the fight that my wife has done. She's cooked. I tell everybody I could, like, the crisis lines and shit. Honestly, I think this is the first time I ever talked about this on the show, where it's weird for me because being vulnerable in our society and our culture, especially being Hispanic or Latino or Mexican, wherever the fuck we want to call ourselves at this moment, right? Is our culture says suck it the fuck up.
Yeah.
Right? Shut the fuck up. All right. There's literally our grandparents were picking the fruit of the fields from fucking dark 30 to 0 dark 30. And I have no grounds to complain. But somehow God's put me into this situation and I feel as though I need to speak up about it. And I tell my wife that all the time. And I love that dynamic relationship that you and your wife have, that mutual experience, right? You've got to do things and have purpose. This is something that, sadly my wife and I never had. We got married. Several months later, I asked for help and this has been the journey since. So it's been 15 years of me begging, supplicating, asking for the most minimal things, right? I mean it. It's the minimum, the most minimum. And I go, and that's the reason why I tell people to this day, just don't give up because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what you're going to say. You never know who's going to hear your story. You never know. Don't give yourself up. Don't give up. That's it. Just don't give up. I know it doesn't make sense. And for the listeners out there that are probably literally on the edge, shit, we did talk about the 80,000 people that might be fired. Maybe those are a few of them, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Maybe it's just, some guy down the road named Johnny that's listening, and maybe somebody in Bulgaria, maybe somebody in France. Shout out France or Ireland. We get a lot of listeners from all around the world. It's fucking weird because in the human experience, I don't think I'm unique. I don't think I'm special. What I think is that my perspective to not quit seems to be a little bit different from most. Mm-hmm. Even when I talk to my wife about it, she goes, dude, you just don't give up. And I go, I know, that's part of my fucking retarded ability. I don't know if you know this, but I do not know how to quit. And it's either a good thing or a very bad thing. But when I'm down here and I don't quit, you love it. When I'm up here and I'm fighting people, you hate it. And I'm like, okay, sorry. That's a little bit
No, it's all good.
But it's something where I really find, that's so important, especially, being who you are, right? Let's not beat around the bush. You're right. You are a celebrity within the veteran military community, okay? I've met a lot of gentlemen that have relative play, nowhere near, okay? But never have I ever communicated about these issues with any other gentleman that's ever been through anything, let alone has earned and been awarded as you, let alone is creating a nonprofit to actually help and integrate things. I've never connected with another human being like this or on this level my entire life where I'm actually vulnerable and sharing this, right? And that's why I think it's so much more powerful to do these things. To share with people, to say, hey, I'm not perfect. I fuck up. In fact, it's my nickname. My dad gave it to me. Hey, fuck up. No.
Pendejo.
Pendejo. I thought it was mijo. No, right. That's the other one.
Right, that's the other one. No, but you're absolutely right. You said something about, not giving up, one thing that and because of the sensitive nature of what we do, we don't. So I've never have helped someone that's been critically at the X that I personally have known. All 24 people that we never knew even existed in this world until someone reached out to us and said, hey, I have a friend in need that I can't get a hold of. But out of those 24, I want to say 6 or 8 have gotten the message to us. And I want to say it's all been over the phone, like when first responders were there. And because it always kind of goes the same way. They're like, wait, who came looking for me? How did y'all find me? And the first responders or law enforcement are like, I don't know. Do you know who these people are? They work for an organization called No Shame Warrior Foundation. They're like, no, never even heard of them. Has all been the same thing. They've said, I never realized there's people that are out there that actually care. Mm-hmm. And that's, and that's where we fall into that darkness, right? Because we come across all of these barriers, all of these roadblocks, right? Where it's like people that are supposed to be in the United States of America, that are supposed to care for me, right? The VA, fucking my family, my close friends, right? Because we don't share our stories sometimes. We feel that no one cares. We're going through this world by ourselves in this dark. And I say this because I lived it. I lived it for 14 fucking years, brother. And if there was anyone that should have had every platform to have shared their story and seen how sailors and Marines really cared about it was me. And because I didn't share my story, I felt this darkness. You know what I'm saying? Until the moment where my big secret came out. Where it was no longer, I couldn't hide it because now here I am with the suicide attempt, right? But them just saying, man, I never realized there was people out here that cared, made us realize that is what people need, man. We just need to show each other that we care. And if these organizations that are established to be there for us aren't being there for us, then how are we going to support each other? Because asking for help, for whatever reason, when we're sitting here doing this, seems like the hardest thing there is. But when you're out on the battle space, right, and your whole team, your whole unit is being overran, and the enemy, is right over the fucking berm, and they're about to come, it's you and maybe 3 other people left, and there's 150, 200, 1,000 fucking enemy commands about to overrun your position, and you're exhausted all your ammunition, weapons are jammed up. The only thing you have left to do is do what? Fucking pick up that radio and call in for help. Yep. Your last lifeline. Fuck it. Bloop, 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 bloop. I need fucking bombs dropped on this coordinate. If not, we're all gonna fucking die. Why the fuck do we not do that for ourselves? Yeah. Why do we sit on that fucking hill knowing that the enemy's coming at us and we just sit there and say, fuck it. That's it. I'm done. Yeah. Life's over. Why don't we pick up our phones, man? Why don't we send out that message to our brothers and say, or sisters and say, I'm about to be overran, man, and I need some fucking help. Why is it so hard, And it shouldn't be, man. And man, Sergeant Matthew Beavers, one of my brothers from the Battle of Al Nazaria, was actually my guest speaker for my retirement when after my suicide attempt. We were doing a Facebook message. It was me and like 10 to 12 other of my Marine brothers. And I told him what happened. Matt Beaver said it right there. He leaned into the camera like this. And he said, hey, Doc. He goes, did you fight in the Battle of Al Nazaria yourself that got you awarded the Navy Cross? I said, fuck no, Matt. I never said that. I said, why would you even bring that up? He goes, it's simple. He goes, so why the fuck are you fighting this battle by yourself? And that to me was the light switch, man. I realized, why am I fighting this battle by myself?
Dude, that's so fucking tough.
And from that moment on, man, I have learned that I am not in this fight of what we call life by myself whatsoever. And if I think that I can win life by myself, I'm wrong.
Yeah. That's just too fucking powerful right now.
Right?
It's so real because, as a community, we're told to not. We're told to suck it up. We're told to lift it up. We're told to be by our bootstraps, a culture, our life, American, the whole society, and coming from the experiences, right? All these different experiences, to even evaluate the team, to say, hey guys, look, I'm not an asset. I'm a detriment right now, and I can't X, Y, and Z, and I don't want to be dragging down you guys or whatever the situation is. That's what I told my wife today. Like, I don't want to be the guy that slows down your life to make you feel that you're not living, period. Right? I don't want to be the guy that makes it seem as though I'm not there all the time for my kids. I haven't missed a day. It's one of those harder things for people to wrap their heads around. I haven't missed a fucking day of my children's life. Okay. For some way or reason, I'm still fighting this battle. Whatever this is, this negative connotations, this self-deprecation, this negative self-talk, this thing in the back of my head saying I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to win this thing or to defeat this VA, right?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck am I fighting them for? Why? Right?
Yeah.
What do you mean veterans are blowing their heads off in the foyer of VAs and burning themselves in front of them to send the alarms off to the fucking world that, hey, we're not getting taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how to communicate our needs, but nobody's asking the right questions either.
Right.
And one of those things that I find more and more again is exactly what you're saying, that fear of communicating the need for help. When it's everything else, any other situation, right? We know, yeah, we'll fucking call our bros. A bunch of dickheads want to come into my fucking house. No, fuck you, right? No, but if it's you beating yourself up, it's like, no, fuck me. What is that? How does this exist in the same person? And yourself is one of them that's been able to, and I say, display to the world your ability to focus and perform, to be recognized in it, and you still battle the same fight. How in the fuck does anybody else have a chance at this thing? You know what I mean? Alone. And I mean it exactly what you said. Alone. Don't do it alone. I connected with the bro randomly. I was getting a fucking tooth fixed after I cracked it in that fall. Sucked a big dick. I'm not going to lie. He hooked it up. He was a fucking endodontist, was in the Navy, did 14 years or 7 years, whatever his years were. And I genuinely, I see it in his eyes. I go, dude, hey, how you doing? He goes, oh, I'm good. I'm good. I said, no, how are you, dude? Like, how are you doing? He goes, well, and we connected. You never know who's going to reconnect with you because months later, and I'm talking about this year, January, February, he sent me a text. He goes, hey man, I know you don't know me very well. I know, whatever. You really made a huge impression on me. Right? Just ask me genuinely, how am I? It made me reflect. It made me realize that I'm dealing with anxiety in a very bad way. I'm not even talking to my wife about it, dude. And I've talked to her, and me and her, we're adjusting some things. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, dude, that's fucking beautiful. Just promise me one thing. He goes, what? Don't do it alone. The shit almost got me so many times. And it's gotten to get me, it's so many times, so close, even these last few months. And then something happens. I meet people like you. I meet people like Brett. I meet people like Brian. I meet people like Adam. These people in my life, they give me a sense of hope, although small, right? Yeah. It's that little bit of light, like what you were saying. You were going through it and you didn't know that anything out of that, you didn't see the light anymore and you wanted to call it quits, right? Having that feeling every day and then getting to meet people and hear the beautiful story. Share it with our listeners. Share it with our community. I feel like that's the answer. I don't mean that's the answer for the entirety of the job. This is the start. We're headed to assessment. We're going down. All right, cool. We're leaking out here. All right, let's until we can figure out what's up. And then we go over here. Oh, your shit is blown out your back. Okay, well, that's I got a bunch of duct tape, but we were going to work on this. There doesn't seem to be that coming from those that are in a higher position of authority that could actually reflect the outcomes that are promised. But after today talking with you, man, and these conversations and everything else that we've really brought up, I really want to kind of to center focus it on, what are the next steps to supporting No Shame Warrior Foundation? What is the next steps to making sure we promote and proliferate the mission and message that Luis Fonseca and his wife are really on, which is don't do this alone. Reach out, communicate, be vulnerable. Yes, it's scary. It may not work the first time. I am going to be very honest. It may not work for 15 fucking years, folks, but it's going to work. Just trust and have faith. There's eventuals. You get the next day. You might get the next day. And then eventually things are going to get a little bit more clear, right? And then before you know it, you get to say, hey, you know what? When I was going through this hard time, I remember listening to this show. Joey and Luis were fucking like grabbing a bunch, like they were crying like a little bit and shit. Right. But then they kept saying this No Shame Warrior Foundation, No Shame Warrior Foundation. I was like, yeah, I know my guy, Johnny. He fucking sent me a text last week and he goes, by next week I'm out. I'm like, oh shit. Well, let me make sure Johnny knows how to get in contact. How do we get in contact and how do we share exactly what No Shame Foundation Warriors is all about?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So across any social media platform, there is a No Shame Warrior Foundation, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Really, I don't use TikTok for no shame that much though, just because I don't think the platform is really geared for what we're doing. I do share like on TikTok, like, just the videos, about, not doing it alone, mental health, things like that. But I want people to be very careful as well too. Just a little disclaimer. I love how many people it seems are promoting mental health and resources and all that. But just be very careful. There's a big study out there. I'm actually in school for psychology right now.
Nice.
So there's a big study out there that approximately about 75% of people that put out stuff about mental health and or how to combat it, there's no validity to it. So just be careful with what you, and I say that even with my own self. If you see that I posted something and it's like, what I read, and it's a reputable, whatever you got it from, like let's say from the American Psychology Association, that contradicts what I might have put out, please tell us, let us know, because I want to make sure we put out factual stuff. But so across any platform, we also have a NoShameWarriorFoundation.org, where you could send us emails, sign up. I don't do a newsletter, and the reason why is because all this is fairly new to me, and so this year one of our biggest push is kind of doing this, is putting out across the social media, opening up our board of directors positions to people that can bring innovative ideas on how we can progress this program, because it's like, okay, I'm so happy and blessed that we've been able to help 24 individuals, but then to me, it's always what is next? What do we do next? And one of the things that we're seeing is hey, we got them to the emergency room, we got them the help that they needed, but what's next? How do we ensure that they're getting the proper treatment? How do we ensure that their family is healing together? Because it is not a single person healing, right? And one thing that you might have noticed, Joey, and other people that might see this later is, for instance, one of the things that we're trying to combat now, and this is what we're going to, I'm actually going to bring up to the board here shortly, is we help save somebody, right? And then let's say their mental health team or their primary care physician says, hey, there's this program that I really want you to go to that is, great for what you're dealing with. Well, what a lot of medical insurance companies do is they will cover the program, but they won't cover your travel to get there. Right? So now we're asking someone that is in a mental state that can't even meet life on life's terms right now, right? The smallest things to us at those moments seems like the biggest burden, right? Like, shit, just getting out of bed and going to take a shit. You know what I'm saying? Seems like a big burden. So how do we alleviate those burdens? There's programs where, the whole family can go and heal together, but your medical insurance won't cover your family's treatment. They won't cover your family's travel. So that's what we're really trying to gap is, hey, we know of an organization that we want to send you to. Fuck the money. We got the money. Like I said, I know there's money out there, Joey. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
How do I tap into that now where I can be a really good steward? You know what I'm saying? And say, hey, look, we found this individual. They were on the X. We got them off of the X. Now it's time to treat them and their family. You know what? You're a family of 6. You're going over to whatever location for the next 2 weeks. Oh, by the way, you also have bills to pay because, life doesn't stop. Don't worry about that. We'll cover your bills for those 2 weeks. Plus, we'll cover your travel there. We'll cover the medical treatment that you and your family are going to get. Where I see that is the big deficit right now. So if anyone has any ideas on how to do that, that's where we're really at right now. Like I said, money is great. And if I had a $5 million check right now, I would be ecstatic for all of about 5 seconds. Why? Because the rest of the time is, how am I going to be a good steward of these $5 million? And you've mentioned, one of the things that I never wanted to be a part of was organizations like the Wounded Warrior Project, where it comes out that 93% of all of the funding that was given to them went to their executive staff. No one on my staff gets paid shit, brother. Yeah. That's why when you look at things on my website, you might be like, man, this is kind of like kindergarten shit. Yeah, because I don't have thousands of dollars to pay someone to run my website. Yeah. I stay up till 3, 4, 5 in the morning YouTubing how to develop a website, YouTubing how to edit videos, YouTubing how to help, that way the little bit of money that I do have goes to the appropriate places that it needs to go to
those in need.
Yeah. So hopefully one day when I feel that we have figured this out and we have, millions of dollars in the bank account, it's all because, we're going to put it to treat this person, send this person there. You know what I mean? So that's really where we're at. I think how can right now people help support No Shame Word Foundation is letting them know that we're out there, that there is an organization. And I'm not saying other organizations don't care, but I think we have a track record of showing that our main priority is showing you all that we care and we're there for you. Our main priority isn't putting money in anyone's pockets. My main priority isn't being able to go to my tax appointment here next week and showing my CPA, hey, look, I traveled all around the United States. Here, write this off for me. Fuck no. Yeah. I could care less about that. My main priority is showing people that we care. There's an organization that is out there that really cares, that really wants to be a great steward of anyone that donates, whether it's $1 or whether it's $1 million. You know what I'm saying? How can we be good stewards of that? And please bring us ideas to the table. And if you want to get involved with an organization that I feel truly has made a direct impact on people's lives, and I'm a supporter of a lot of other organizations that I feel are doing great things. One of them is Irreverent Warrior. I go to their hikes. Why? Because camaraderie is big. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But besides the hikes, what else are they doing? That's their lane. And that is great. And, I would love to share that with veterans and say, hey, go out there and go on a hike. See how many other lost souls are out there. Because that's what we think, right? We think of, it's only me that experiences this. I'm by myself in this. I'm lost. It's only me. Well, you know what? I can show you how many it's only me's that are out there that have the same fucking story,
That's so true. That's so fucking true. And you nail it. You nail it. Like, that's so fucking true. We think we are. Yeah.
Yeah, we think we're so unique that we're the only ones experiencing 8 fucking billion people in this world right now, today. And we're the only ones that are going through this? Nah, man. There's
just no way.
There's no way, right?
Yeah, there's so many ways to look at it too. It's like, yeah, and then there's that bias, right? Where much like the first heartbreak. Okay, the first heartbreak's always the worst heartbreak because you feel like it's you'll never find love again. And me and my wife have talked about that. The similarities of tenacity and overcoming adversity, adaptability, right? This also describes maturity and understanding, intelligence, ... EQ, IQ, all those good things. But fundamentally, if you feel as though that these things that exist don't have a place in your life, like what if it's a guy in a walker? I'm not going to go on a hike, right? But what I can say is I support the fuck out of them. Donnie and everybody out there, right? When before they started Vet TV and everything, I had one of their guys come out and I was teaching a little bit about audio, all the simple things, right? All I can say is, no matter what you do it. Okay. Do something. Okay. Call people, reach out to Luis, talk to the No Shame Warrior Foundation people about your friend, your family, or yourself, right? Find out different ideas. Like, Luis, you brought up something and I'm going to hit it because with 8X Entertainment and things that we got developing with everybody, right? I got a million different ideas that can create billions of fucking dollars. And it's literally because we're addressing the problems at hand. I think I said it earlier. If there's a problem, that means there's a solution in the existence, okay? We're just not thinking outside the box big enough, or we're not simplifying the problem as much as it should be. And in mathematics, the complex scenarios, you don't go, here's a complex answer. No, they literally fucking call it simplification. Okay, so it's like, I'm a retard, okay? Like, I'm the other half's stupid, the one half is retarded, and then, there's a little quarter Mexican in me. But the truth is, like, no matter what you do, give yourself an opportunity other than permanent decisions. Like, you sadly did make that decision and you survived that attempt by the graces of all things being. It was probably all 18 of those dudes' stories you still have to tell going, no, fuck. I could just imagine that immediate feeling. Like, how fucking weird. But, that's my intellectual, like, imaginative brain. But the truth of the matter is, you're here. You have this great story. You have this great passion. You have this great drive. You have this great No Shame Warrior Foundation.org.
Org, yes, sir.
Org. Okay, got it. .org. I didn't want to sound like a retard, and there I go. I did it again. So you have this great stuff, and all I can ever do is say, we're going to work, dude. We're going to get this shit out there. I can see myself being a huge part of this because it's exactly what I need even now. It's exactly what I needed 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I know that I'm not the, like we said, I'm not the only one going through it. I know that for a fact. In fact, it's pretty interesting how I think this is going to probably be the first episode of the season because of how relevant the conversation is to the current circumstances, that, you know, you have all these talking heads taking advantage of the political amplification and tools at their hands. Like, oh yeah, you know, this politician is this better. This, you know, they all fucking suck. Okay.
Yeah,
like, I don't know how to say, where's the outcome, buddy? You guys are over here like jibba, 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 and you're getting paid all day for it, but where's the outcome? All right. That's all I want. And this is the thing, I think, literally all the 370 or 360 whatever million Americans in the United States of America, you know, that's what they want. They want their roads to fucking not look like shit after being taxed out the asshole. They want their fire hydrants, okay, Gavin? They want their fire hydrants to have water in them. God fucking forbid that's some goddamn fucking hard ask.
Right.
I don't know why, but sure is. Ask Mel Gibson. You know, his fucking house is going. So all of these beautiful things, right? All of these, bro, it's so raw. I'm going to fucking meditate for like 3 hours after this because I'm just like, I'm not going to be able to chop this. I don't want to chop this up. Even when your kid came up, I'm like, look at the beautiful, and I'm going to pay accolades because you controlled the fuck out of yourself. As a father seeing another father, I'm like, oh, no, I know that feeling. You're good. Just take your time. Yeah. I love it because you've already had these stories. You already had these experiences. You're going out and you're sharing them with them. And what I can say is, I don't want to say you deserve everything, good and bad, right? But you do. You've deserved this and you've worked so hard for this. You're the right person for the right job. You're the right person to push this actual genuine caring, the empathetic truth of what a corpsman is, even after the fact, which is part of the identity of humanity, becoming a man, you know, being a good steward, like you were saying. It's part of the identity of being a corpsman because you're taking care of others every step of the way. Every step of the way, whether it be their medications, their dental, their physical, their psychological, their spiritual, right? The marriage, the counseling, all the different things we do as a corpsman, the experiential, right? Where, yeah, regardless of what you get recognized for, you still did the fucking job, kids. That's what it was. Not everybody's going to go home with a piece of metal or ribbon on their chest. That's not the point, right? The point is when gentlemen like yourself get it, and you said it perfectly and beautifully. You carry that cross, like we said earlier, piss off some more Christians, right? You carry the burden of that cross for the 18 men that didn't come home. But in truth, you're carrying it. And I don't mean to add to that fucking burden, buddy. just let you know, I'm not trying to like, oh, fuck. Yeah. You're carrying it for all of us, right? And that's the reason why these decorations are so difficult to get approved and so scrutinized and so weighed heavily. And that's something that, you know, to go back into it, we are launching some beautiful programs. A lot of great things, of course, with Brian Buckley, with the team room with Brian Buckley. We got the Potty Mouth Profesh with Stephanie Hune. We got the, I think it's called the 13 Words with Brett Weiss. I can work on that. I think I'm going to have to. But the key of all of these things is to say, hey, let's create a future together. Let's bridge these gaps. Exactly like what you're saying. There's so many beautiful minds with so many different solutions. You nailed it right on the head, Joey. The money's out there. Yeah, I know. I've seen it. I've gone to those nonprofit golfing tournaments, my buddy. You know, look, I've seen the money. What I can say is, then let's make it. Let's create it, right? With all the different types of things that we can bring into this world, both artistically and both right with the altruism that I see and hear in your heart and passion. I'm like, dude, this is, and not to get vulgar again, this is the fucking, okay? All right, the pants are down, everybody's wet, the dick is hard, it's time to fuck, okay? I don't mean to say it that way, but I mean to say it that way. Because as much as I can say it's a fight, yeah, nobody's really like, I'm not a fighter. Everybody's a fucker, okay? Everybody. I don't care who you are, what you look like, or what you like or don't like. There's people, fucking 8 billion of them, all over the world every day, and hopefully they're creating a better future for us by doing it, right? We need to then, like you said, be a great steward, earn that rapport, develop the outcomes, Okay. Build and nurture that trust and then provide.
Yeah. And
bro, it's just so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. And you know, you say like building that rapport to me has been, when I first started down the nonprofit world, I do have friends that do like grant writing, you know, like as a business, you know, and I learned grant writing as an art form, right? And why have I not pursued it so well? Because when I first started this, everyone was like, Luis, you need to show people the why, you know, like why they're going to donate this much money, whether it's state level, regional level, or federal level, or private donations, right? And so I understood that. And so I think now where we're at, you know, 3 years, the No Shame War Foundation has been going on for 3 years. We've been able to do what we've done. And we talk about what is the next step and how do we help people heal. You know, one thing that you learn in the military, especially as you're moving up the ranks, is don't come with me with problems, come with me with solutions. So I see this problem, like I said, right?
Yeah.
How do I get these men and women that we've been able to support them in their time of need, but now we need to support them on a longer basis or help support their family and really start the healing to go. And I can only talk about maybe my experiences and what I felt I needed at times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone to a lot of different retreats. I've gone to a lot of different programs, you know, whether group therapy or individual therapy. And one thing I've always noticed that for me personally, and it seems like it's kind of the same thing when I talk to other people, is that whole rigidity of being in treatment. Like, okay, you go to this location, you're there for, let's say, 2 weeks. All right, you must wake up at 5 a.m. and breakfast is from 5:30 to 7. If you don't get breakfast, you're shit out of luck. Then you have to go into class from 7:15 until 9 o'clock. Then you have a break, and then you're back in class, you know, from like 9:30 until 11 o'clock. Then you go get chow from 11:15 to 12, and then you're back in some other fucking class, right?
Yeah.
I didn't need that, man. I didn't need to. I was already in the military. I know what it's like to be structured. I know what it's like to have to wake up and only have certain. So what? One thing I would say is this. If I had, let's say for whatever reason, Joey, you said, Luis, I have $1 million check for you here. What are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do with it? Or a $5 million check, right? What are you going to do with it? Well, I already know that there's 69 acres here in Ramona that I want to buy. The reason being is because I want to set up a farm. And what that farm is, it's a working farm where we're going to have livestock, we're going to have crops, but we're also going to have all these different modalities of helping people heal, whether it's learning art, whether it's learning to play an instrument, whether it's having one-on-one conversations with healthcare providers, right? Mental health specialists, whether it's having group therapy, whether it's doing equestrian therapy and you go ride horses or you go learn how to ride dirt bikes. I don't give a shit what you do. You just have to sign up for something every day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Go, if you want to come to this farm for your 2 weeks that you're here and all you and your family want to do is learn how to ride ATVs or dirt bikes, go do that. I don't care. But all I ask is you to sign up for a class that is being provided by one of our mental health team, right? Whether it's group therapy or family therapy or individual therapy, doesn't matter. But hey, you know what? I get it. I didn't like having to wake up at 5 a.m, brush my teeth from 5 to 5:30, then have to be forced to eat breakfast between 5:30 and 7. And that was it. No, breakfast goes from 6 until 10. Go get breakfast whenever you and your family wake up and want to eat breakfast. Then lunch starts from 11 o'clock until 1400. You and your family or yourself go get lunch whenever you want to. You know, have that open fluidity where you can be like, because to me, I feel like, okay, well, I did this today. I'm not tied down to like, oh, now I got to go to this stupid class that I don't even fucking want to go to. You know what I'm saying? Because where for me has all my healing come from, don't get me wrong, I give it up to my providers, my mental health team. Shit, I'm working on my doctorate to be a psychologist because I want to be able to afford to give that back to people. My wife's working on her doctorate for Chinese medicine and acupuncture because we want to be able to give back to our veterans. Like, hey, medication pills have a place and purpose, but I've learned that my healing comes from this. The interactions between my brothers and sisters that have gone through the same fucking bullshit that I had gone through. And to hear someone say, hey, you know what, Luis? Dude, I went to this fucking program. Check it out, man. Right? This is in my mind, in my utopian mind. We'll be like, hey, Joey and his wife come there and their kids come there and they meet someone else where you're maybe learning how to take care of, let's say, corn, right?
Yeah.
And someone's there and says, hey, have you just mentioned something? Have you signed up for this one class? And you're like, no, like I really had no intentions on it. Dude, exactly what you said is how I felt. And I signed up for that fucking course. And let me tell you what, it was life changing. Not, but maybe like it helped me see it. It's kind of like when your eyes lit up when Matthew Beavers told me, like, Doc, then why the fuck are you fighting this battle by yourself?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want. I want to be like, whoa, what? Okay, maybe me and my family will go sign up for that tomorrow. You know? Maybe you won't.
It's the opportunity to provide for the breakthrough.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
What I'm saying? And it gives you the power, the control back in your hands.
Instead of being forced into a situation where you're not even comfortable with to begin with. It's kind of like this. It's just what is it, the Tom and Jerry game, right? You're like, well, we're going to help you, but only if you behave. And I'm like, well, I don't want to fucking behave, you cunt.
On the No Shame Warrior compound, we want to also, like, every day. We live right here by San Diego. How many veteran nonprofits are down in San Diego that teach veterans how to surf?
At least 6.
At least 6, right?
At least 6, yeah.
So why should I have to develop that again? No, all I need to do is, hey, No Shame Warrior Foundation is tapped in to these other nonprofits, and on Wednesday or Thursday at 7:00 in the morning, the bus leaves, and if you signed up for it, you're gonna go learn how to surf. Fuck it, we'll go to Big Bear.
Yes,
send people to Big Bear. That's where the therapy is gonna happen. You know what I'm saying?
Did you? Okay, no. So this was like 2011. I did the and you're just blowing my mind again with this whole relevant, actual, tangible resources, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're actually creating the room and space for healing. I did recreational therapy back in 2011 when I transferred hardship, and I was there for like 6 months, and I had like 8 to 10 appointments a fucking day. It was hell.
Yeah.
And what I remember was, though, we got to go on these trips, like Big Bear. Me and my bunch of my legless fucks, we'd fucking strap up and go hang out on a little boogie board, right? It was really weird to see a guy with no arms or legs trying to fucking swim. I'm just going to say it, guys. Okay? It's not the safest. I don't recommend it.
Right. But
it's the same thing in the surf clinics. Like me and Tommy, is it Parker? I want to say it is Tommy Parker. He goes by King Kong and something like that. He started doing a lot of things, right? And I remember going to a surf clinic with Betty Makowitz or some shit like that. And it was there was 2 different one, Operation Amped, and then there was a couple other Thursdays and Fridays clinics, and you can go. But Tommy was one of the dudes. He was a triple amputee. He is a triple amputee, not was. He still is. Yeah. It doesn't change. Believe it or not.
He didn't regenerate his limbs?
No, not that guy. No, he was
not a lizard?
No. He didn't get the gecko injection before deployment, right. I guess. Like, fuck. So he comes in on a wave, right? And I never got treated as if I was a patient in any of these things because I never carried myself as I was a patient. So I'd always start working as a corpsman. I didn't know fucking how to shut it off, right? So I'm just in the water in not Onslow, it's fucking San Onofre, right there in Camp Pendleton, right? Right off of Barcelona area. Beautiful day, right? All of a sudden, Tommy, that was a different day, but Tommy did roll on this one. This whole clinic was just gorgeous. People sharing, people venting, people having a beautiful time, people getting their eyes almost cut out by a surfboard. Fuck. None of that guys, just a random white lady that was like a U.S. super surfer lady. And I'm like, I don't know. Everybody fled to her. It was like 50 men. Just, I'll help you. And me and the rest of the crew were just like, yeah, everybody's good. I'm not fucking dipping into that shit. And it was just one of those experiences where you get to exist, like you were saying, with your brothers, to redevelop that camaraderie, to be in a space where you could be with your family, like you were saying about equestrian or equine therapy, having a farm, having something, like I said earlier yesterday, we popped a few seeds, me and the kids, and now I'm excited about the season, right? Although I'm excited, I'm still combating this battle, right? No longer alone, but I'm still combating this battle. Now, at the same token, I'm running through 100 miles a minute and going, all right, cool, as soon as we're done recording, I'm going to all right, cool, here we go. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about that. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the thing that of which to me is the truth. No matter what we do, we're in this shit together. It's fucking tough. It's tough. It's such a hard fucking place to come from. But the inspiration that we've had throughout this conversation and the motivation and the passion, of course, the emotion, the raw, genuine emotion of truth and life, it comes out as folks at 100%. But, it's something that Luis, it's just something very difficult. I've never really shared this much with my listeners before because I felt that I was ashamed of it. You know, that's the reason why when you're like, no shamed Warrior Foundation, I'm like, holy fuck, right on the nose too, huh? And I'm like, okay, you know, let's see where this goes, right? Let's see where it goes. And I think that's the beautifulest thing to kind of wrap up with here, is to focus in on that, is to focus in on the No Shame Warrior Foundation.org, right? Reach out, get solutions, provide some answers, look into Ramona, buying out these 69 acres, or maybe here in Valley Center, it's 425. I don't know what the price is on the 69, but we'll work it out because the money's out there. You know, that story, those words, you know, the money's out, and the solutions, like you said a minute ago too, don't come with me with problems, come with me with solutions. I'm like, that is very true about the military, especially in the Navy. You better have, if you have one problem, have 3 solutions. Yeah. A cheap one, a free one, and a nope one where nobody's doing shit. Okay. It's a you and you're fucking just gritting through with your 2 hands, and all of a sudden the shit works now. And everybody's like, how'd you get that to do? Tactical acquisition. Yep. Don't worry about that. We don't talk about that, you know? But that's the thing, is it's such a beautiful ride, dude. This conversation has been completely and utterly cathartic. Okay. Like just absolutely, I'm looking forward to the peripetia. These are words that I learned a long time ago when I was, you know, flirting with the thought that, you know, becoming a doctor and shit. And I'm like, no, I'm good. You're going to become a doctor. Me and you will talk, and then you can change the world, you know? And I'm like, yeah, to me, that's the beautiful thing, is there's always a tomorrow as long as you give yourself the opportunity. Sadly enough, a few of us aren't going to make it till tomorrow. But if there's anything that you guys, you know, our listeners, women, men, all the in-betweens, everybody out there, look, you don't deserve to feel as though your life should be minimized or denigrated to the point where you have nothing but a permanent solution, which is, sadly enough, what Luis and I have talked about. You know, not giving yourself that opportunity to turn to your fucking sailors, your support system, and leaning on them. Let them. They're strong enough. Okay? Be strong in your endeavors. Be brave. Be bold. And be humble. That's something that you've exuded this entire interview, this entire conversation, all of our talks. Actually, I walk away with it and I go, fuck, I wish I could be like that a little bit more every day. You know, just the humility, the sense of humbleness. I'm a pretty decent guy. Don't get me wrong with that, but I'm always trying to get better. And to see that, you know, there is this energy out there, this vision, of course, with No Shame Warrior Foundation and No Shame Farm, or was it No Shame Compound? What was it?
Well, we still haven't. Yeah.
Nothing's set in stone, folks. Don't fucking hold it to me, all right? But it's a beautiful.
I mean, if you're the biggest donator, I'll let you name it whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, right. It's called Big J's house. No, I'm just kidding. Right? You know, honestly, dude, that is beautiful, and I just can't. I'm gonna meditate with this, you know, for weeks, and I'm gonna come up with a bunch of answers. So let's go ahead. Do you have any shout outs, last words, any dedications, or maybe promotions that we didn't get in through our 3-hour conversation?
No. I think, you know, the big bread and butter. And I know, I'm sure some of your listeners are going to want to hear more about the combat stuff. And so if you ever want me to come back on for a part 2 or head down to the studio and we can dive more into that, I'd be more than happy to, because I also understand that, hey, sometimes it's cool to hear war stories, right? But
everybody likes a war story. I've never not met a person that didn't. Okay.
Right. But no, I think we hit just about everything. And the main thing I wanted to drive to everyone is that, first and foremost, you're not alone in this world, regardless of what your mind might be telling you at that moment. The pain that you are feeling right now, is temporary, but it takes you personally to open up your mouth and speak on it. Do not be ashamed of speaking your truth. And I learned that just through myself. And the reason why I share my story so much is you hit the nail with the hammer a little bit ago, is when I was a young sailor and I always heard all these, leaders talk about how their shit didn't stink and they were so great. And that's why they, became master chiefs or sergeant majors, or they became captains or colonels or generals or admirals. I never felt that I was ever going to amount to anything because I never felt that's who I was. Mm-hmm. I felt I was a piece of shit, right? And to this day, I feel like I'm a little bit of a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? And some people might not view me that way. Some people might view, like you said, that Navy Cross and like, oh shit, look at this dude. Well, if I can hurt just like anyone else, it shows that none of us are any special. It shows that none of us are what's it called? None of us are immune to the mental health, right? Because we all deal with it on a daily basis. Some of us handle it a lot better than others, and some of us, don't. And we get to that part in our life where we feel that there's only one permanent solution. But I will say this: one thing that I have learned is, man, I'm about to just finish up a 16-week long depression therapy program. I have 2 weeks left. So if you think that I have my shit together because of how you hear me talk right now, I still don't. I still need to find out ways on okay, what is creeping up in me right now that I haven't touched on. Yeah. And I found out through my therapy that, you know what, I've touched a lot about the Battle of Al Nazaria, my different battles, my PTSD, but I never really worked just on depression alone. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've learned through this therapy that I'm barely about to finish up, so you're talking about the last 14 weeks, was I deserve to be happy. I deserve to see life and feel like life is okay right now. And I don't have to grip the steering wheel waiting for that crash, that inevitable crash, right? See, Luis, that's why you're a piece of shit. You're going to eventually fuck it up, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not. My nonprofit is still going. Have we had our hiccups? Absolutely. But we've overcome those and we're pushing forward. I've told you earlier in the interview, like, I never thought myself to be a smart human being at all, because it was always engraved in me, like, see, you're not smart. That's why you got C's and D's. That is flojo. For our non-Spanish speaking family, you're lazy. You don't apply yourself. Well, if I pull up my psychology courses right now, I've gotten all 95s and above in every single fucking class. I just applied for the the Chi-Sci Honor Society, which is a psychology honor society, right? If I keep this up, I'm going to graduate summa cum laude. So all of the facts show that I am a smart man. My mind still wants to fuck with me, right? Because of all the whatever, but the facts show differently. And I want people to realize that our mind will fuck with us time and time again for whatever reason, right? But know that you are worthy. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to look at life and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I've taken some licks and life fucking sucks right now. Absolutely, it does. But I deserve to be happy. I deserve love. I deserve to feel love. I deserve to be loved. I deserve to be part of a family, whether that family is a marriage, whether that family is your brothers and sisters in arms, whatever your family structure looks like, you deserve to be in a happy, very loving family. And I feel a lot of us, because we don't always feel that way, we think that we don't deserve that. And well, that's my life. You see, that shows why I'm a piece of shit, why I don't deserve to be happy when it's contrary to that, So there's anything else I can leave the audience with is understand that none of us have this shit figured out. If we did, we wouldn't be suffering now. If Absolutely. I had it figured out, I'd be a multi-billionaire fucking living life comfortably, but I don't. But we're going to figure this out together, right? We're going to create a better world for our and I speak a lot about our veterans because that's the world we come from. We're going to figure out a better world for our veterans and realize one thing, that none of us that wore that uniform ever went into work, whether you went to the front lines or not, doesn't matter. None of us ever went to work ever waiting for some politician to fucking make our life better.
That's right.
It was us within that organization that figured out how to make that organization better. It was us that figured out how to make life within that organization better. And it was us that figured out how to win battles in that organization together. It wasn't some fucking politician. So stop waiting on everyone else to fucking fix our problems. This is our problem. This is our brotherhood and sisterhood that we're talking about now. So now start being there for each other and start fucking winning these wars, these battles the way we know how. And that is through camaraderie. That is through a brother and sisterhood. And that is being able to pick up that radio when we feel all odds are against us and saying, hey, you know what? I don't have the skill set to win this battle, but I know you do. I know you do. And I know you do. And that is what building our fire team is all about. We don't build a fire team of just machine guns, because just machine guns do not win battles or wars. It takes so many different skill sets out on that battlefield, wherever that battlefield is, whether it's in here, or some fucking country far away from the United States. Doesn't matter. We win those battles by building a fire team that has such a diverse skill set. And that's what you need to remember, is with these battles at home, we need all those different skill sets in order to win these wars, these battles. And it takes us. Doesn't take anyone else. It takes us.
That's so fucking powerful, man. Such great words to leave us out on, folks. This has been a great show with Luis Fonseca. We've had, again, some of the best conversations that I've had in such a long time. I can't wait to follow up with you again and time again. And I know our listeners are going to be stoked to hear from you and to see and check and update and always be, abreast of exactly what you got going at NoShameWarriorFoundation.org. Make sure you guys check them out. Make sure you share and proliferate their mission and message. And of course, listen, like, and share.
Internet, hello. This is number 4